sense to me.
But that's okay, his girl.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
It's cool to see. I think there's some weird things, like my brothers are filling plates.
Brent's a lot better now.
Yeah, he has been for a while. Basically, they said that MLB. Where's he at?
In Laura.
Lucky me. It's a pleasure to see this guy.
I hate that.
The team don't think
Yeah. What if the players say no?
Hey, when did you
And those two guys. This may be their only
On it, yeah.
sixth greatest memory of their career.
Responder.
I don't know. I don't really like that. We'll tell them why I haven't seen Brent for a few years.
Is this your first time?
Yeah.
Tucson hybrid.
Yeah. You sound like other I know.
Nice on the guest.
Isn't that funny? Mom's like, you're gonna have to come up with some way, some gimmick. Yeah, that's really cool to see. They had some civic. It was traveling. Yeah.
Nope.
Really?
Okay, we're ready to go. Thanks everybody for being here to City Council meeting in Spanish Fork, July 15th, 2025. We're calling it Fiesta Days. We already had some Fiesta Day stuff, right?
Yep.
We're in the middle of Fiesta Days having a council meeting, and we appreciate everybody joining us here in person or online. We will start like we always do in Spanish Fork with a prayer or motivational message. Councilman Marshall has that, and the pledge is Councilman Cardin. Councilman Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. I've asked Mark Harrison to come and give us some thoughts and a prayer. So we'll turn the time over to Mark.
Thank you. Mayor Randolph, members of the City Council, Director, it's an honor and a privilege to be here before you this evening. Thank you for this great opportunity. Shane Kamie at the flag retirement ceremony last night said, hey, would you You do anything tomorrow night about 6 o'clock?
I started.
Well, and
wisely.
I couldn't think what it was, but I was going to watch the ball game tonight, but I'm recording it, so that's okay.
All right.
But so we're okay. But he said, "Yeah, I'd like you to give a few thoughts about, whatever, and anything you'd like, and then an offer of prayer." And I said I'd be honored to do that, and so that's my business here this evening. But it made me reflect as soon as I got home about my hometown. I was born and raised in Spanish Fork my entire life. I met the love of my life in Spanish Fork. We were married in Spanish Fork. I raised my sons in Spanish Fork. And Spanish Fork means so much to me. It is my hometown. When you think about Spanish Fork, think about all the wonderful people, the heritage, family friendly. It's a great place to live. And I was coming up with just some quick things about what would I say to someone if they said, well, tell me about Spanish Fork. What would you say? And so these are kind of some of the little quick things I would tell them. We have our own lighthouse. How many cities can claim that? We've got an Escalante cross that looks over us up in our mountain. Again, great place to live. One of the safest cities in the state of Utah. Baseball City, USA. Pride and progress. Agricultural. Livestock. One of the best rodeos in the United States of America. And the best flag retirement ceremony. Family friendly. Outdoor lifestyles with our parks and our trails. We'll have 2 temples in the near future. And service. I think that's one of our biggest attributes in this little city is service. I found a short poem, I'll give it now, and it kind of depicts about what else you would say about Spanish Fork. I don't know who wrote this, and I did kind of a deep AI search on this and come up with this. So, a city nestled beneath the mountains high, Spanish Fork where dreams and valleys lie. From pioneer trails to modern day embrace, a tapestry of stories, time and space. The canyon whispers tales of long ago, of friars' quests and water's gentle flow. The Escalante cross, a silent and watchful guide, as history unfolds with nowhere left to hide. Icelandic heritage, a lighthouse stands, a beacon of those who shaped these lands. Through fields of green, where crops begin to rise, a vibrant heart beneath the Utah skies. A place of safety where families reside. Open spaces where nature can confide. Spanish Fork, a name that carries weight. A community strength sealed by fate. My hometown. Please let us have a word of prayer. Our kind eternal Father in heaven, we humbly come before thee this evening and as members of the city council of our community and of this great state of Utah. We are so thankful, Father, for this great city, for those individuals who have served to keep our city, our hometown. We're thankful for those individuals who serve this day, for our mayor, and city council, for all the directors and all the workers and those who serve in this great city. We're thankful for the freedoms of this great nation, for the opportunity that we have to meet and as city council and members of the community discuss the needs of the great cities and country that we have. Father, as we go forward this evening, we'd ask a blessing to be with those in attendance, that all will be well with them and their families. We ask a blessing to be on the city of Spanish Fork during our celebration, that all will go well. We will bless the safety, comfort from those who attend, for members of our community, for the people who come back for the reunions and all that will be coming here, that we'll all be safe and sound. We ask a blessing upon this great country, that those who lead us and guide us and direct it will do things that are of best interest for the nation. We're thankful for the members of the military who serve us constantly and those who have gone above and beyond. Also our first responders and all others who serve so diligently on our behalf. May they be blessed and may they be watched over. Again, Father, we thank Thee for the many blessings Thou brings into our life. We love Thee, we love this city and love those who serve. And say these things in His name, even Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate that.
All right, will the audience please arise and say the pledge with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks again, Mark. If nobody knows, the event held last night that maybe somebody's going to talk about up here, and we certainly have some pictures of it, but the flag retirement ceremony, I only know you being involved in that, and just so many years of making that such a professional and dignified beginning of our celebration is such a neat thing. And while you're here, you don't have to stay for the whole meeting, and I want to catch you before you're here, but you should know that new residents every single time that attend that make a point to let us know that they'll never miss it again. And so it's growing every year, and it sure is meaningful to us, but meaningful to community, meaningful to residents, new and old. So thank you. Thank you for all the time and effort putting that.
I just say thanks, Mark. I appreciate that a ton. Your poem was like just like a big, having this, I don't know, it was just it was awesome. I appreciate that. It is our hometown. Growing up in Spanish Fork, you can hardly ever miss the Harrisons, right? They're always there. And sometimes they're cheering for you, sometimes they're yelling at you, whatever it might be in the moment, they're still there, right? They're behind you, they're supporting you the whole way. And I appreciate that 100%. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your wonderful words, and just appreciate your help.
Perfect. Okay, that takes us to item 4 on our agenda, the public comments section. Anybody from the public that would like to address the mayor and council, anything that's maybe not on the agenda tonight, but anything you'd like to cover, whether it just be a comment or a question to the mayor and council, this is the time to come up and do that if you'd like. Anybody for public comment? Okay, seeing none, it takes us to council comments. We will start in the middle tonight, just to throw people off, because sometimes I don't start in the middle, right? Usually start at an end. We'll go to Councilman Euler. He's always prepared. He's a Boy Scout, Eagle Scout. I hope are we correct? Are you an Eagle Scout? Did we put that on the record?
I flew with the chickens.
Okay.
Never made it as high as the Eagles.
Neither did I. That's fine.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I've got, I'm assuming somebody else will mention and show some photos of the flag retirement ceremony last night, which was fantastic to attend and be a part of. Grateful for Mayor Leifson for the words that he shared and his message. It got me thinking about my own grandfather from Spanish Fork who served in the military, and as he was naming the names of all those from Spanish Fork that have served, makes me appreciate the heritage and the good people that we have in our community. So to all our veterans, thank you. The other thing I've got, we had our animal shelter board meeting today. We've been discussing for quite a while now with the projected growth for Utah County, specifically South Utah County. The animal shelter is getting pretty tight as far as space. They're always concerned about having enough space for the animals that are brought in. The report today was that as of right now, they've got 78 dogs that are being sheltered and 140 cats that are being sheltered. So if you are in the market for a new pet, rather than jump on KSL, maybe just go down to the local animal shelter and see what pets they've got available for adoption. With the growth that we're seeing, we've been having discussions about the future of the current building, the future of the facility that they're in right now. Trying to decide, do we try and find a new location and build something larger? Do we try and expand where we're currently at? Problem with expanding is it's on Utah County property. The county, I think, is the one that funded and built that building and turned it over to the animal shelter. So we're trying to decide if that's an option on their property to expand. We even discussed the possibility with Eagle Mountain and Saratoga growing the way they are, of pulling Provo out of the South District, possibly creating a central district with some new locations. We ran the numbers on that scenario where if Provo wasn't a participant in our district and wasn't contributing the funds that they do, what would that look like for Spanish Fork? For those that don't know, the district's made up of the following cities. You've got Elkridge, Genola, Goshen, Mapleton, Payson, Provo, Salem, Santaquin, Spanish Fork, Springville, Utah County, and Woodland Hills. And every city, plus the county that are participants in the district, they pay into being members of the district. They pay a portion to help fund all of the needs that take place at the shelter. Spanish Fork's payment this upcoming fiscal year of 2026 is just over $132,000. So just so that the residents community is aware of that. If Provo were removed from the district and we all had to disperse their funds, Spanish Fork's total would go from $132,000 to $169,000. So just looking at some different scenarios as to what our options might be. No decision's been made yet. We're just in the early stages of trying to plan out the future with all the growth that's taken place in our neck of the woods. So with that, just a quick reminder to you pet owners to be responsible pet owners and have your dogs and cats spayed and neutered. Thank you. That's all I've got, Mayor.
Bob Barker. And yeah, that's a good point, Councilman Euler. When we think about growth and how many people are coming into our area, it brings animals as well. Yep.
Yeah.
Good point. Okay, we're going that way, Councilman Cardin.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things, or really just, a couple. The first is I was able to attend the airport board breakfast a couple weeks ago on a Saturday. It was really nice to see a lot of the airport patrons there, and then also to be able to answer some questions specifically around runway Bravo, and then also the potential of a tower, the landing fees, some different things that are happening at the airport. If you haven't been down to the airport, there is a lot of vertical construction happening down there. Our airport is changing drastically quickly. Go take a look at it. It's really fun to see. And if you haven't been, there's a great opportunity in the last Saturday of September for Wings and Wheels. So get that on the books. You can buy your tickets now on SF City Tix, where you can also buy, well, you could have bought rodeo tickets. And they are, I can't remember the price. Corey, do you remember the price of Wings and Wheels? I forgot the price off the top of my head. No, it's okay. You can go to SF City Tix and find out. It'll be a surprise. Other than that, we are, like we said, we are into Fiesta Days. The Arts Council sponsors the community theater that is happening, and they will be starting Shrek on Thursday. I believe the first showing is at 2 that day, or maybe it's at 7, but then it goes throughout Fiesta Days and even after. I think the last showing is the week, the 26th at 2 p.m., and that's being done at Spanish Fork High School. And Councilwoman Beck had the cast on Studio Chatter, and she said they are delightful. So make sure you go and see it. And that's all I got, Mayor.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilman Cardin. Councilman Took.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one item for me this evening, and that is to just kind of echo what Councilman Euler said about the flag retirement ceremony last night. It's touching to me. If you've not attended it, you just have to do it. It's a kickoff to Fiesta Day. That's how I view it, and you could feel that. And I just appreciated all of our veterans, and you get to, start on such a high note with our celebrations for the next 9 days. And so I hope to see all of you around at the different events over the next week and a half or so. And yeah, that's really all I've got tonight, man.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilman Took. Councilman Marshall.
Yeah, so I had, like I said last time, I attended a meeting.
Got it.
And Kevin picked me up because I was a little bit late. So I attended the Veterans Council. Shut up, Jesse. It's gonna be a long night if I can't get through my opening, huh? They had a good meeting, talked about finances, where they were with finances. They had a lady come in and give them a presentation on how to potentially clean the memorial wall in the cemetery. They talked about the possibility of funding that and getting that done before Memorial Day? Labor Day? Memorial Day. Labor Day. Thank you. We'll get there. Like I said, I was late. It's going to take about $6,000 to do. They have most of that. They have asked if the city can come up with some. I don't know if we have spare change in our cushions that we could help preserve that memorial up in the cemetery. But $6,000, they have most of it. It wouldn't take much. They are a nonprofit, so if someone so desires to want to donate to them, you could do so. It's $6,000 to clean, which will take care of quite a bit of it, but it's probably more like a $40,000 rehab at some point in the near future. So I'm going to start working with them to figure out a way to start raising some money to get that into better shape. Is the best part about going to that is the love and devotion they have for everything at the cemetery and the veterans there. And Kevin came before and talked about putting living veterans on the flags along Main Street, which they loved that idea. So I'm glad you came and did that. They are part of our community, a major part of our community. I wish we get more out. The demographics trending upwards there a bit. We could use some young folks to reinvigorate them a little bit, but they're doing what they're trying hard. They donate across the community. They take their funds and they really donate to veterans across the community, whether that's they're giving $1,000 to an event in Salem that honors veterans at a football game. If a veteran in Spanish Fork needs something, they're there to support them. So I think we'll get, I don't have the name of their 501c, but we'll get that and publish it. And if you're so inclined to shoot them some money to do some of those things, they would really appreciate it. But from a city's perspective, Seth, surprise, do you have some money for me? No pressure.
You, as the council, carry the purse.
Oh.
So
Mayor.
When we'll define it, yeah.
We'll talk about it later. But they are willing to do the whole thing, for sure. They could use some help. So we'll talk about it.
just maybe a thought, additional thought. A couple of weeks ago when Brian Perry's funeral was held because of his service in the military, they came. You know, much too young of an individual to pass away, right? But yet that group and the service, that 21 gun salute and the ceremony that they provide was beautiful, and one of the greatest men of that group. You know, he's got his cane and he's dutifully walking, carrying what he's carrying, doing what he's doing with a cane, and you see the love that he has for the country that he served, and that love extends to the widow of the person who died, who likewise served. It was just wonderful. And the group that you're talking about, at least I think from many of our perspectives, they are incredible. And their love of community, their love of country is perhaps unmatched.
Completely, yep. And that led right into the flag ceremony last night, which was, again, an honor to be there. Prior to my service on the council, I didn't even know what happened. And that's one of the best things about being on the council is you get to be there and be part of it. And Mayor Leifson last night he did a great job. And the chaplain, as always, did a great job. When the microphone fell and he stood next to it,
Yeah, that was good.
that was pretty powerful.
That's good.
So that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman Marshall. Yeah, he should plan on the mic going out. I told him afterwards, don't use the mic ever again. Just say that prayer from the Bible that loud. That was very
I'm
good.
pretty sure everyone in the stadium heard it.
Yeah, nobody missed it. It was good. Councilwoman Beck.
Well, I think everyone already said a lot about the flag retirement ceremony. That was a wonderful night to kick it off, and just Fiesta Days for the next week and a half. There's plenty of ways to get the information, the magazines that are in mailboxes, on the city's website, and then social media. So there's no reason to just sit at home being bored. Get out in the heat and join your neighbors and friends and classmates in celebrating Spanish Fork. There's a lot going on. There's something for everyone. So I just hope, if you're brand new to Spanish Fork or you've celebrated 100 years already, get down and get out and enjoy and celebrate. We have a really lovely community to rub shoulders with others, and I think we're pretty lucky. And next time, I'm sure we'll all have a lot to say about Fiesta Days and share all the details about that. So that's all.
Thank you, Councilwoman Beck. And from the council and myself, thank you for your involvement. Thank you for your good work in leading that area of the city. You're doing too good of a job to ever lose that job if you wanted it. So just great work, and all the volunteers as well. I guess I'm the only one that sent Jack some pictures. Usually you guys get into the picture game too. Nobody did that tonight? No pictures? Okay, Jack, if you want to start us, I don't know what you're going to bring up, but I'll talk about whatever. Let's the statue out front. How about the Clark family statue? That was yesterday, I believe. Yesterday. Kent Clark, Lisa Clark, David Clark, and the last Clark, Stephen, brothers and sister. Kent was the one that, I guess, trained Jordan up in the way of doing finances correctly here in Spanish Fork. Retired after 30 plus years of service with the city, but really neat story. And I was honored that the Clark family asked me to MC and speak at this yesterday. But if you walk out in front of this building now, there's a statue, a very intricate and detailed bronze statue that Gary Price, local sculptor that has done things all over the world, did this sculpture here. And the neat story about this is, usually when the mayor, and I said this yesterday, usually when the mayor gets a text or a phone call and says, would like to meet with you, it's not usually anything too good. It's complaining about Councilman Euler and, or something like that.
Sounds right.
But every time that the Prices, Gary Price and Lisa Clark reach out, it's something cool and something neat and meaningful. And this was that too. This statue wasn't made for us. It was made to go to another place, and it was kind of made in error. The place it was supposed to go said, "Oh, we thought it was this other statue that you do, Gary," and so he's like, "Oh, well, okay, I'll do that other statue," and got the right statue to them. However, 4 years ago, when this library was built, and that bench concrete area out front was made, it fits perfectly for what this statue would need. And so my quote yesterday when I was speaking to the Clark grandkids that were sitting around and ready to pull the cover off of this was to quote Bob Ross, "There's no mistakes, maybe just happy accidents." And this was just a happy accident that so generous that they donated this statue to the city, and it'll sit out in front of the library for the foreseeable future and be here to remind us not only of a great family, but how important this area is, this library is to our community and our children. So publicly, thank you, Clark family. And if you haven't seen that yet, see it during Fiesta Days and look up close. It's pretty cool to see what's written on some of those books too that those kids are holding. So very cool. That's the Spanish Forks Facebook page there that has got that on it. Next thing, what?
No, nothing. Just your comment, Mayor.
Oh, okay, taking a dig. A couple hours ago, was out in Palmyra, my old stomping grounds, out at Neil and Susan Sorensen's place in a corner that I remember well. I think I've hauled hay there a couple of times as a youth. I wasn't smiling when I was doing that by any means, but I haven't been out there for years, so it was fun to go out there. There's some friendships that the governor's chief of staff has with the Sorensens that date years and years back. Mine goes that she was my primary teacher when I was a kid out there, and so it was good to catch up with the Sorensen family. The governor was out there to speak on a range of things, really, but a bill passed by Representative Perucci was out there as well in the state legislature to make sure that if land is being sold, it's not sold to entities that are antithetical to the U.S. interests. So, Mr. Harrison, you'll know more about that, but it was good to have General Burton out there talking about it as well. There's Susan Sorensen, and just great people to host us out there, but a great message from our governor, too, who comes from rural parts of Utah as well. So it was an honor to be out there with Mayor Wright of Payson and other elected officials from our area to speak to that.
Mayor Wright out-countryed you.
Well, just barely, yeah. If I'd have known he was wearing the cowboy hat, I'd have come ready.
He was in the car, at least?
It wasn't no, it wasn't yet. But I had the Fiesta Days Rodeo and the PRCA hat.
Close.
That was pretty close.
You came
It was more
close.
country than the governor was, so just trying to do it. Next thing, Jesse's going to come over to my house later and get the full 165 photos I took last week, if you'd like. But council covers for everybody when each of us are gone, and the council covered for me last week. And the reason why I'm just showing you this picture, I was in Italy, I was in Rome last week, and fortunate enough to see all the landmarks, but the Colosseum stood out. And the reason why I want to bring it up today is we're about to get in our own Colosseum on Saturday. And hopefully we're not using this. What I'm standing above is called the gate or the door of death. The other one's the door of life. And if you died in the Colosseum, a gladiator was carried out this one. If you lived, you walked out the opposite one. And there's a lot more gory details than that. Our tour guide told us that the morning was reserved for people fighting animals. The middle section was for lunch, and the killing of Christians and the killing of thieves or people that were found guilty. And the afternoon was for gladiators to fight each other in the Colosseum. So really a humbling place to be and to feel of the history that happened there. But I did for a split second, and maybe it's because I was probably wearing my Spanish Fork Fiesta Days Rodeo T-shirt while I was in there, probably. But thought of our own. Thankfully we're not doing the same type of events in our own Coliseum, in our rodeo arena down here. But it is entertainment that brings us together as a community and family and friends. So everybody be safe. Have a great time. We're excited to see all of you in the rodeo and everything around Fiesta Days, and so I wanted to share that with you. Last is Mike Clayson gave him an award yesterday that involved the Chamber and Postal Annex. Did you get that picture? Did I send that to you? Mike Clayson is coming on. Let's see, what night is the fireworks? Is the pyro musical?
Friday, the 18th.
That's this next upcoming.
In a couple days, yep.
So in a couple days, the pyro musical that goes to music and is down at the sports park that is just getting bigger and bigger every year. Gave Mike an award. I thought it was funny that they gave him a bouquet of flowers, but that's one of the things I got to give to him along with a gift bag there. But truly a good man that sits on our planning commission right now and volunteers for us that way, but also helps out in fundraising for the Pyro Musical and has been on the Fiesta Days committee, him and Angie, for quite some time, and really has helped bring another event to Spanish Fork to help us be connected and be as a community together. So I wanted to acknowledge that he got a well-deserved award yesterday that I was able to give to him right before coming down to the flag retirement ceremony. That's all I have for my council comments last couple of weeks. And our city manager, is he there? Sorry, you were stuck behind Shane. I couldn't see it. We have staff reports, manager parents.
No staff reports, just a 101.
Okay. Okay, anything else, council, that we need to cover in council comments? Okay, we'll go to the next item then, Spanish Fork 101, recycling and spring cleanup results.
Gatlin, come on down. That should be Councilman Euler's phrase.
Come on down.
Come on down.
Lucky to have Gatlin tonight.
Just want to say I'm grateful to be here tonight and discuss recycling and how the spring cleanup program went. Before I start, some of these pictures on the first two slides are us touring the recycling center. And if you've not seen the video, it's on the website. Anybody that's looking for information, I would say go there and watch it. It's about 10 minutes long, but there's a lot of good information. Do you want to go to the next slide, Jack? So I just want to kind of touch on a few things that we have problems with or that we feel are success stories. First one is contamination. Right now we have a 24.5% contamination rate. That's actually really good. We've been bringing that down a year or so ago. Oh, perfect. It was about 30%. A lot of that's due to the new solid waste district center, but it's coming down. We have a goal of getting it lower, but that's going to take effort from everybody. That kind of rolls into our education side of things. We got to get the public educated. They need to be putting the right things in the can, and it takes everybody's part, right? Which is it's a hard thing to do. Recycling's tricky. With that, I kind of want to talk about who's participating. We have 71% of our residents participating right now, which is the highest it's ever been. So another positive thing is it's growing. We would like to see that higher. If we could get more people to participate. The problem we see is that the common question we get is it actually being recycled? The answer is yes. But most residents that talk to me about it say it's just going to the landfill or down to the transfer station. And like I previously mentioned, that video online shows that it's not. What we send up there, they're processing. I mean, they've got all these bells of paper products, aluminum cans, and then they push it through at an insane rate. It goes through those conveyors really fast. It's really cool. I just want to take a minute and just share. Yeah.
What is our number one or our number one contaminants?
That's a great question.
Pizza boxes?
No, I would say paper or plastic bags.
So
plastic bags are a big.
The grocery. What I get at the grocery store, that plastic bag. Don't recycle that anymore. That used to be one, so that maybe is a challenge, right? That used to be on the please recycle list.
Right, and it's not. The other issue is people put a liner in their recycle bin and then take it out to the garbage bin or the recycle bin on the curb, right? And so if it's bagged up, it's no good. And then anything that's wet paper products is hard. Because it's all being done by AI. When we were there, there's only 3 people sorting products as it comes through. And they're just pulling big items that shouldn't be in there. Everything else goes through the conveyor. It's all done by AI and sorted. It's actually really impressive.
So Gatlin, if there's a storm that comes through, blows my lid open, rains, and gets everything in my recycling box, all the cardboard wet, at that point it's contaminated and they can't use it. Is that right?
Yeah.
So do we just leave it, or do you recommend we pull it out and throw it in the trash can?
For right now, I would say leave it and let them sort it out and use what they can. Because there's going to be other materials in there, right? Your plastic bottles, things like that they can still use.
If he leaves the lid open and it dries, is it okay?
It's a good question. I would say yes, but I think it depends on the recycling center, right?
Yeah.
And I would say let them sort it out. Because like I said, our contamination rate's getting better.
Good.
So
When I went up and toured it, and this is a change that we did in the Mendenhall house, we have our inside garbage that is the regular garbage that has a plastic bag liner in it. And then we always had our blue can inside that had a plastic bag liner in it. Don't do that. Don't put a plastic bag liner in your blue can, because all you do is
Good idea.
bag that up and throw it in your recycle bin. They will not open the plastic bag that you just put that trash in.
Right.
Got to go directly from your blue can into the blue can in the street and leave it loose.
It's good intentions, but it's really defeating the purpose, right?
I think that would be a good visual for me, like in my kitchen, like if I don't want to put something messy in a garbage that doesn't have a liner, so then I would just know it has to be clean to go into this garbage.
Right.
That's a perfect way to look at it. It's clean. It can go in the recycle. If it's dirty, smelly, it goes in the garbage.
Well, and one thing to clarify on the 24% contamination is it's not just our residents. That's made up of our district, which is Provo, Springville, Mapleton, us, Salem, Santaquin, and Goshen. So it really takes all of us as a community and as a county, really. But it's something we're working on. So I just want to share some of the things we encourage and that should be in your recycle bin. Cardboard and paper products, so magazines, newspapers, any food boxes, cereal boxes, Amazon boxes. I know everybody has a lot of those. Aluminum cans and steel cans, plastic containers with lids, and then make sure that anything in there is clean. They have started accepting pizza boxes if it passes the shake test. No food, but the shake test. As long as you can shake it and nothing falls out, then it's clean. And then lastly, who put that picture in there?
No.
Jack? So these are items not to recycle. Plastic bags we talked about, glass, electronics, styrofoam, and that's, honestly, you would be surprised how much styrofoam with food ends up in a recycle bin. Diapers, there's a lot of diapers that end up there and shouldn't. And yeah, that's it with the recycling. Just to touch on spring cleanup for a second, we had a really good turnout for spring. Last year we did 1,180 tickets. This year we were just under 1,500, which was really good. So it's growing. I know the bins went away and a lot of people didn't like it, but this is much better. So.
Okay, Galen, I want to ask you something. I'm going to admit something. Years ago, probably 8 years ago when I was on council, we were told that recycling was getting sent back and that it was kind of a waste to even have a recycling bin, so I canceled mine. You're saying if I order a recycling bin now, it's not a waste of money?
Correct.
Okay, I'll order one then.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of people in town think that. There's
Right.
a lot of comments that it's just going to the landfill or the transfer station.
Yeah.
And it's not true. I mean,
Okay.
they do what they can to recycle as much as they can.
This is good to hear. And do we do anything? I mean, you're telling us right now what to recycle, but I would honestly want a visual on in my laundry room or somewhere in my kitchen. Can we get a visual of what exactly we can recycle?
Yeah, so that flyer I have up there is,
Yeah.
is you can get from our website.
Okay.
Or from the district's website. I can't remember, but.
Okay.
And then we send out newsletters and we've done some social media stuff.
Okay.
Just trying
Just
to get people
really
to.
educating.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And I guess one more point is the recycling center that you're talking about there, and maybe that's part of the confusion too, is because we've built this big new transfer station. Sometimes people think, well, that's where my recycling is getting sorted. That's up in
It's in Salt Lake.
right? That where that goes. So if you wanted to see how this goes, you could probably arrange a tour. We know some people, but it's clear up in West Salt Lake where that stuff goes. It's not going to our transfer station.
Correct. And actually, at the new facility, they have the whole west side is all recycling, has its own compactor
In our transfer station?
in our transfer station. So it's being dumped in a separate pile, then put in a compactor, loaded in trucks, and hauled to Salt Lake. Anything that's considered contaminated does come back and go to the landfill. But the advantages are we're keeping stuff out of our landfill, which is extending the life. We're also getting a resource that is reusable, right?
So the resident would be correct that it's going to our transfer station, but from the transfer station, it's getting up to West Salt Lake,
Right.
where it's going on those.
Yeah, so to add on to that, there are 3 compactors, right, in the new transfer station.
Yes.
And if you and I take our own garbage there and back our truck up, we're going to one garbage compactor. and then our black can that's getting picked up, and the dumpster that they pick up at the, whatever the company is or whatnot, that goes into the middle compactor, and the one on the far left, if you've gone in there on the far west, right, that's the recycle compactor, and so it will get pushed around and into that compactor just like all the others, but that compactor's all recycling. It will get loaded onto a truck and shipped away, just like all of our trash. Just when it goes out, it might go this way and the others go that way, right?
Right.
And so it's going to a recycle facility. I think something that is helpful, maybe to your comment, Councilwoman Beck, that recycled materials are a commodity, and the prices and values of those commodities do go up and down. And so from time to time, paper recycled goods, the value, the price for that might go down, so much so that it's not worth recycling at that time. And they'll hold on to it for a while, and maybe they'll end up throwing some of that stuff away because it's just not there, the value. But in the long run, it seems like these items always are winning, and we have refined it. We used to have plastics, I think it was like plastics numbers 1 through 6 or something like that, whatever that was. And that's refined a little bit because these are the ones that are continually good in that recycle stream, right? But it is a commodity, so the value does go up and does go down based on whatever the markets are bearing, right?
Yeah, and just to share too, I mean, last year we were paying, where's Jordan? I think we were at 140 a ton in recyclables, and this year they took it down to 125. So the rate did come down this year, which is a positive as well.
And then we pass that rate discount onto our residents?
Hopefully. If we can get enough people participating, we get another break from Republic, and then depending on what materials do and what our cost is, yes.
Okay.
So, any other questions? Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Gavin. Appreciate that. Okay, Spanish Fork 101 complete with an added picture of Gatlin that he didn't know about. And yeah, that was good. Takes us to number 8, consent items. We have A and B on consent items. If there's no questions for the consent items, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent items.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck. Seconded by Councilman Marshall. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Consent items are approved. Takes us to our first public hearing tonight. There's A through D. The first one is the ordinance for the Maple Mountain Plat N Master Planned Development Zone. Mr. David G. Anderson.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. The subject property in this case is northwest of Maple Mountain High School on the south side of 400 North. 13 and about half acres. The proposal involves approving the plat with a total of 33 lots for single-family homes. This plat was first approved in 2018. The approval expired just a couple of years after that. Since then, our ordinances have changed a little bit. So one part of what's before the council tonight is what you just mentioned, Mayor, the public hearing for the proposed zone change to use the master plan development overlay, which is the new part, so that the project could be approved with lots that don't meet some of the classic zoning criteria like lot size and maybe some of the dimensional criteria that we have for lots in the R112 zone. There is another part, which is in the new business section of your agenda. I don't know if you'd want to entertain these together or not. I'll leave that up to you. And that is simply the reapproval of the preliminary plat in the form that's presented to the council tonight. A little bit more detail on the project, some imagery. The property owner has been developing the site now for a little while, so starting to see some things change there. Frankly, yeah, they're probably a little bit ahead of the game on that. This image is taking from above 400 North looking to the west. And so forth. Properties are a little bit odd by way of their configuration, which has led to some of the different lot configurations in the project. What we're talking about ultimately is development that really is intended to match what surrounds it today, which are lots for single-family homes that overall have at least an average lot size of about 12,000 square feet, which is roughly a quarter of an acre. Nebo School District owns property that's adjacent to the subject properties here to the southeast, really between the development and Maple Mountain High School. There's not a lot that's frankly unique about this proposal. The Development Review Committee reviewed it and recommended that it be approved. There were some concerns raised in the Development Review Committee about some of the lot sizes being more in the 8,000 square foot range, or at least just below 9,000 square feet versus closer to what the typical zoning minimum lot size would be, which is 12,000 square feet. Ultimately, the Development Review Committee got comfortable recommending that the project be approved as proposed. We did have some discussion in a couple of Planning Commission meetings then about that same concern about some of the lots being sized a few thousand square feet smaller than that, again, 12,000 square foot standard minimum lot size. But yet, as the project as proposed does meet the criteria for subdivisions that are presented as master plan developments with the master plan development overlay in the R112 zone. Ultimately, a majority of the planning commissioners recommended that the proposed plat be approved. And along with that, I believe it was unanimous relative to the zone change being approved with the planning commission. So that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you'd have about any one of the two parts that we have or anything else, but from my perspective, it's really not a distinct proposal from what's been presented in the area in the past.
Questions for Dave before we go to the applicant and the public? Thank you, Dave. If the applicant's here and would like to speak before we go to the public hearing, would give you some time if you want. I don't see the applicant here. I'd entertain a motion to go to public hearing.
Move that we go into public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Euler, seconded by Councilman Cardon. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing for item A, Maple Mountain Plat N Master Plan Development Zone. Anybody from the public that would like to speak to this? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Cardon, seconded by Councilman Took. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Discussion back up here for this planned development zone.
I feel like the Planning Commission did a good job of kind of working through all those concerns and talking about lot sizes. I know there was some concern about just a couple of the smaller lots, but it makes sense with the surrounding neighborhoods and how it's all formed out. So I'm comfortable with it.
Up here in your guys' neck of the woods, right?
Likewise. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, if there's no other questions or concerns about this, let's try to do A and B together. They need to be separate. Vaughn, is that correct? But okay, so let's I'd entertain a motion for item A, the zone change, and then B, the preliminary plat that's under new business.
I move to approve the ordinance for the proposed Maple Mountain Plat N zone change based on the findings in the staff report.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Cardon, seconded by Councilwoman Beck. A roll call vote here. Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilman Cardon.
Yes.
And Councilman Took.
Yes.
Let's go down to 10B, the preliminary plat approval. If there's no questions there, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
No, I'll go ahead and move to approve the proposed Maple Mountain. Is that where we are, right?
Yeah, 10B. 10B.
Yeah, the
Yep.
proposed Maple Mountain at Spanish Fork subdivision Plat N, Phase 2 preliminary plat based on the findings in the staff report.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Cardon. A roll call vote here. Councilman Cardon.
Yes.
Councilman Took.
Yes.
Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Okay, 10B and new business is approved as well. Takes us to 9B, ordinance for the Walmart online pickup expansion zone. Mr.
Again, Mr. Mayor, thank you. We're talking about the Super Walmart on Canyon Creek Parkway and the Canyon Creek development. There is currently an online pickup part of that store. It doesn't run by way of cardinal directions. I think about it as being on the south side of the store. And Walmart would like to expand that. It's pretty straightforward. relative to that. There are a couple of challenges. This is not exactly like Target taking what had previously been a Kmart building that was several decades old and adapting that for a contemporary store, where in the case of that project, part of that conversion involved bringing that site into conformity with our current development standards for things like parking and landscaping. It's a little bit different than that, but yet those are two issues that have come into play. With the additional square footage that Walmart would like to add to the building, because our parking requirements are based on the size of buildings, Walmart ends up being deficient in terms of the number of parking spaces that they have for the site. In this case, it's by a handful of parking spaces that they become deficient if the addition is approved and then constructed. And also there's a landscaping deficiency on the site that was created as part of the overall approval of the Canyon Creek development and how some things unfolded there. So tonight, the proposal, in order to allow for Walmart to expand and increase the size of their online order pickup part of the store, is to use the development enhancement overlay, which is a zoning tool that allows the city council to consider proposals like this one on a case-by-case basis and to weigh the pros and cons of allowing for some flexibility relative to certain zoning criteria. Walmart's requested that tool, that zoning mechanism, be approved so that they can move forward with their expansion. The Development Review Committee and Planning Commission have both reviewed this. The Development Review Committee approved a site plan for the expansion that's contingent upon the council approving the development enhancement overlay. The Planning Commission recommended that the overlay be approved. And just a little bit more thought relative to that. The deficiencies that we're talking about, frankly, the landscaping deficiency, that's not going to get better, in my opinion, whether this expansion moves forward or not, just given, again, how the Canyon Creek development has been constructed. So with that as well, it's not getting any worse. And relative to the parking, it really does become a nominal deficiency that they have in the total number of parking spaces. And as we talked about it, as the Development Review Committee and as it was discussed with the Planning Commission, and as the applicant has been able, I think, accurately to portray, parking spaces end up being occupied for far less time with the online pickup area than they do if you're going to park and go into the store and shop and leave. So whether this is actually end up going to translate into decreasing the demand for parking, I guess that remains to be seen, but part of the thought process is that as more people utilize the online pickup area, indeed, because they're staying on the site less, cars are there for shorter periods of time, you can get by with less parking. So I think that's the proposal. I know a representative for the applicant is here. I think everybody's pretty familiar with the site, so I didn't spend a lot of time going through the images that we have here. But again, this is the south side of the store where the expansion would occur, and other things that you have access to via the staff report that describe in additional detail what improvements would be made to the site and so forth. There's one thing that I want to emphasize with this proposal, and it's that indeed Walmart is deficient relative to the amount of parking that they have and the amount of landscaping that they have. And while I think this tool is appropriate to help, for in this case, a company to be able to modernize a store and to add additional service and that type of a thing in a manner and to a degree that is not going to create a problem. And I genuinely would call this a nominal increase in size, a few thousand square feet for a structure that I think is in the 150,000 square foot range. We still take seriously that businesses like this meet those fundamental requirements. So the findings that we're recommending that the City Council consider, we ask that you consider including those with any motion that might be made to approve the proposed development enhancement overlay. We think that's an important part of just recognizing the situation with the site and those deficiencies that exist. So,
Thank you, Dave. Questions for Dave before the applicant?
Nope.
No.
Thank you. Applicant here that would like to speak to this before we go into public hearing. Yes, sir.
I am Taylor Smith with Galloway. We're the engineering firm on this project. And this operation that we're building, just a few thousand square feet, is for all automated pickup. So it's just a place where they can store the pickup orders. They can continue to get them out quicker. It's a place that will actually get cars out of the pickup stalls even quicker because they'll have a place to store everything, to put everything. They'll be able to go out and do more orders. It is not a one-for-one. We're trading stalls here. The pickup stalls are a little larger based off the need of that, because there's car doors opening, there's shoppers, the Walmart shoppers are going in and out of those aisles, so they are larger than a normal stall, and so that's where the deficiency comes, because we took some stalls and made them larger. But ultimately this will get shoppers in and out quicker. If you think you go into a Walmart, it takes you 20, 30, 40 minutes to get through. Do an online order, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes. I think the average time is just over 6 minutes someone waits for their order to come out. And with this new process, it should stick around that.
You have Walmart employees going inside, getting in the store what's being ordered, and then getting it aside in your new pickup area.
Correct. Right now, they are doing that all in store. They do have a pickup area where they do stage everything. So you have your Walmart shoppers that go in. You place your order on the app or online, wherever you want to do it. The shopper goes out, gets your order, brings it to this area. They can store it there. They give you an hour window of pickup. And when you're there, you click, I'm here. And then they bring that. They have it all stored in these carts. And they bring it out to you and load your car up, and you're on your way. So ultimately, we won't need as many spots for the average shopper who goes into the store now, because I think this is, I'm not sure how many of you use it yet, but it is a very nice tool to have. And a lot of people are going that way, and Walmart's growth with it is going very quickly, and that is the need for this extra area. It will not be accessed by your average shopper pedestrians. It is for employees only. So it will not impact how your pedestrians and average shoppers get into the store, get out of the store. It's on the side. It's away from the shoppers going in for their own stuff. And so it won't have any impact on traffic or anything like that either.
I do have one quick question for you. So this will be an addition on the west side, correct? How will this, or how might it affect the current flow of traffic with the pharmacy and their pickup?
It shouldn't affect it at all. The pharmacy doesn't get near the volume that the pickup gets, and so with that, we've created two separate aisles. There'll be signage, plenty of signage directing that for that, so it shouldn't have no effect on it.
Okay, thanks.
Pharmacy's still going to be on that side?
Correct, yes.
Questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'd entertain a motion to go to public hearing for item B.
Go on to public hearing.
Motion made by Councilman Euler.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Took. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing for item B. Anybody from the public want to speak to this? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Euler. Second. Seconded by Councilman Cardon. All in favor say yes.
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 Discussion back up here. Any other questions or concern about this?
Nope.
Okay.
As a part of our review, the staff, one comment or at least conversation thread that we did have is perhaps as this trend, which isn't a trend, as this changes
consumer habit.
Yeah, as this changes the way that we shop to this model, it's probably worth studying the parking standards for a store like this, and for every one of these types of stalls, and for space dedicated to this type of service. What does that do to our historical parking model? Because today 4 of the 30 of us in this room may shop this way, and tomorrow 6 of us, and then 12 of us, and then 20 of us. And that Walmart, in this theory, I think, as was expressed, they'll probably do the same amount of business, maybe more, but with less time in the store, which means the parking lot wouldn't be quite as full. So I think it's a worthwhile endeavor as well. The staff discussed beginning to research what is this doing, perhaps nationally. What are some studies and changes? Is there room for us to consider changes? We don't know that if there is today, and so there is nothing proposed with this, and this is the route that we would propose be followed to allow for this. But you may see in 6 months or a year or something like that, when we have better numbers, better research, if there is a reason to change it based on trends and studies, perhaps the parking standards can be adjusted because of this type of consumer habit.
I think in that same vein, if I was catching what Dave was trying to emphasize as well, is this is a situation that's pretty unique in that you can talk about it and say, this is what's happened and this is why, so shouldn't be just used carte blanche on our industrial or commercial areas as far as being able to have parking deficiency now. This is a specified place and a specified reason, so. Thank you for those points. I'd entertain a motion for item B if there's no other questions.
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the proposed Walmart Development Enhancement Overlay Zone change based on the findings in the staff report.
Motion made by Councilman Marshall.
Second.
Seconded by, tie goes to Stacy. Councilwoman Beck. A roll call vote here. Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Councilman Took. Councilman Cardin.
Yes.
And Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Item B is approved. Takes us to C, ordinance for the proposed amendment to Title 15, Large Utility Facility Overlay District.
Again, thank you. This one, in all honesty, is painful. And I really appreciated a year ago when the council was supportive of us as staff in our effort to create a process, among other things, really wanting to be deliberate and provide Spanish Fork City, ultimately you as a city council, with a way to exercise some oversight when it comes to certain types of large utility developments, large utility construction projects, potentially a variety of different things, in the hope that, simply put, we could work to make sure that residents in the community were as protected as they could be. And in short, over the course of the past year, and certainly in recent months, we've learned that regardless of whether this particular zoning tool is a part of our municipal code, ultimately your ability to impose conditions, restrictions, or to influence how certain utility projects are constructed is very limited. And it's particularly limited in as much as you as the council don't want to spend a lot of money to back up suggested or maybe required changes or any modifications that you'd like to see made to projects that qualify as a large utility facility have. So again, it's a little bit painful to acknowledge that the role of the city is frankly limited, very limited, when it comes to being able to exercise oversight with certain projects. And with that, staff's recommended that this proposed zoning overlay be removed from Title 15. As we discussed it with the Development Review Committee and as the Planning Commission discussed it actually in quite a bit of depth, I shared some of my thoughts, which to maybe paint a picture of what this, I think, very likely would look like if the zoning district remains in Title 15 and indeed it's used to process an application, knowing the end result, which is that you as the city council do not have the ability to require change, to say no, to do really anything but approve a proposal. My thought is that to go through a zone change process, which is what imposing this overlay would be, and inviting those people that are impacted by the project, because they're the ones that get the letters that say there's a public hearing that's going to be held on July 15th. Please come, share your thoughts, share your feelings. Inviting them to come to a hearing to speak their mind, then only to be told, maybe, thank you, but we can't do anything about it. We have some history with things like that. It's been a long time since we operated like that in Spanish Fork, where we required public hearings with a lot of different things that ultimately the city was obligated to approve. But that, I think, sends a really poor message to the community. It gets misinterpreted as the community doesn't care, city council doesn't care, staff doesn't care, they don't listen. And in this case, that couldn't be farther from the truth, as I think is often the case. So certainly we don't want to set things up and to build a hope and an expectation on the part of, again, people that absolutely would be most directly impacted, at least by way of proximity, to the types of things that we were hoping to be able to influence, only again to have those hopes dashed. And that's also why I think having this zoning district removed from Title 15 sooner than later is a good thing. I did appreciate that one of our planning commissioners voted against the motion to recommend that the district be removed from Title 15. I think one of our very insightful planning commissioners, I hate to speak for other people, but it's my understanding that he recognized that there's only so much that the city can do, and that it's probably a good idea to have this taken off the books, but yet still wanted to do everything we could, or to have the city do everything possible to try to have some influence over the things that we're talking about. But otherwise, both the Development Review Committee and Planning Commission recommended that this proposal be approved.
Questions for Dave before public hearing on this? Thank you, Dave. I'll entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Cardin.
Second.
Second by Councilman Marshall. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing for item C. Anybody from the public that would like to speak to Title 15? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Marshall, second by Councilman Euler. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Discussion back up here. Pretty good explanation by Dave here, and the memo reads good too. A little bit of a frustrating one to have a public hearing for stuff you can't
Control.
It's very, so it's sort of akin to UDOT wanting to build Center Street interchange and us holding the public hearing on whether or not they should be allowed to do it. And we would just listen and sympathize and not be able to do anything about it. It's a tough spot. I read through the Planning Commission's discussion just because I wanted to hear that kind of dialogue. They had a good back and forth, and I understand where all five of them are coming from. So it's a tough one, and we want to feel like we can potentially influence that more as a elected body. But at the end of the day, that utility company has regulations to follow, and they follow them. And for good or for bad, elected officials across the state aren't part of that process. We can help drive it, influence it, steer it as best we can, but at the end of the day, it's not our decision. And I don't like that as much as anyone out in the public or here on the podium, but it does not make sense to have a discussion where we can't do much about, right? I mean, just listen to folks express frustration and just shake your head and nod, knowing that you're going to have to say yes to it. It's just, that's a tough one. So.
Yeah. In their discussion, right? Like, it was the public hearing should be happening where they need to happen. It was more of a frustration of how are we noticing those people? I think that I don't know, that's an ongoing discussion that we have in lots of different areas, especially when we talk about big corridors like what they're doing, right? It's a huge project that's Rocky Mountain's wanting to do that you guys talked about last time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like you said, having the public hearings where they're needed or where they actually can warrant change or solicit feedback makes more sense than having them come here and we're just going to say, well, you're going to have to go talk to Rocky Mountain because we can't do anything about it. It doesn't make sense.
The one big benefit is it does, if we have a public hearing, it does sort of bring it out of the woodwork a little bit, but it's so late in the game.
Yeah, they had public hearings, for this project that we're talking about, they had them a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, you're right, Jesse. The frustration is how do you send notice to that swath of people that are impacted at the time? It's a tough one. Having done that type of work for 30 years, it's difficult to engage at the right time, the right place, with the right amount of information. And yeah, but it feels like we tried to take some of that ownership that we probably should not have tried to take.
Correct. I guess the caveat I want to put on it is from a council's perspective, you're dealing with a council that wants the public to be as informed about everything that could affect you. And so it doesn't mean that we can't let you know of public hearings of when they happen, pass that information along. It's just the public hearing might not be with us. It's not going to be with us on issues like this, but we'll do our best as staff and an elected body to inform you of where those public hearings are held and when. We just don't want to have it be a useless one in front of us that you're frustrated with, and we're frustrated too.
Yeah, which doesn't mean we couldn't have an opportunity to provide comments and feedback, right?
Well, no, and that's right. We'll go with you. We'll be your elected voice to be able to go to those same public hearings if necessary and give facts and insight where we can.
Yep.
But it's just going to be in front of the right body.
I think part of the frustration too is with the recent example of what took place. The majority of that infrastructure is on land that's not within Spanish Fork
Correct.
City, but that's the portion of the area that I think the Spanish Fork residents are most concerned with. It's talking about the river bottoms.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have control over that, whether we held a public hearing or not, because it's not even in our city.
Correct. Good point.
Okay, good discussion there on item C. If there's no other questions about that, I'd entertain a motion for item C.
I move to approve the ordinance to remove the large utility facility overlay district from Title 15.
Motion made by Councilman Took.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Euler. A roll call vote here. Councilman Took.
Yes.
Councilman Cardin.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
And Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Item C is approved. Thank you for that discussion. Thank you for the clarity there, Dave. Item D, ordinance approving construction standards revisions. Mr. Corey Pierce.
That's why Paul showed up.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm having flashbacks to several years ago going to Planning Commission to present construction standards updates. And we scrolled through page by
Flashbacks in a
page.
good way.
Well, it was a big update, and page by page we went through it, and I noticed the commissioners kind of dozing off or getting close. And they said, "You have such a soothing voice," I was told after. And I think it was the content more than my voice. So I'm going to give some high-level updates here. If you have specific questions, we can turn to that and go through it if you want. One of the big portions of changes here has to do with storm drain and our low-impact development standards. We've been doing low-impact development for many years now. When these were written several years ago, it was open to many options. As we've honed in over the years on what works here in Spanish Fork with our soils and what we like to see, these are being refined, these construction standards, to be more specific on our requirements and specifically remove portions that we have seen not work well. It modifies the storm drain video inspection. Currently, it says that the city will do the video inspection and then charge the developer staff time and equipment. It just has not worked well, so we require them to hire a video inspection company and submit those to the city. Some bedding material to water lines and some things that the water department has seen. And I'll mention Paul Taylor's here. If you have real hard questions on the water stuff, I'll punt to him. But pretty standard updates there. One of the things we've required is in our retention ponds to design to a 100-year storm. However, we didn't really specify in the construction standards that 100-year storm, so we added that to be more specific for design reports. Another section, we talk about all-weather roadways. That's kind of a reference to fire code and being able to get equipment on turnarounds or temporary roads, but we didn't specify the cross-section of that. So this outlines what that looks like, compaction requirements, road base, and then options of gravel, asphalt millings, or paving in that cross-section. So it gives a lot more direction on what we're looking for that'll solve some arguments out in the field. Some modifications to the water meter standards in commercial sizes, box, and specific call-outs of equipment that we'd like to see in adjustments there, as well as a section about backflow protection. That's something we're focusing on and didn't have a lot of detail there, and wanted to provide some clarification. And then a handful of updates on the water standard drawings, things like adding tracer wire into it and some stabilization for meters, and I would say some fairly simple additions to make our system better. So with that, if you have any questions on anything you saw in the staff report there, I'd be glad to answer them.
Questions for Corey before public hearing? Thank you, Corey.
I've got one for you, Corey.
Yeah.
When's the last time we had a 100-year storm?
More
Last year.
last year, and
Have one last year?
Oh, yeah. You have one most years.
it's worth, so often we think of that, we're going to have this storm once every 100 years.
That's not what it means.
It is not what it means. It
It's
means,
the worst name ever.
yes, it means a 1% chance that you're going to
1%
get this
chance
storm.
of what type of a storm?
This much rain.
This much rain.
Yeah, whatever the amount is.
Okay.
So it's a
I don't have an
statistical, you
opinion
might
on this.
have several dry years, and then, I don't know what year storm, but if you think back to the Fiesta Days Rodeo a handful of years
Best
ago.
day ever. Best day ever.
You could have swam out of the arena,
I did.
Some did.
right? I had water up my shins, I think.
And Jesse's going to do it.
I think that was beyond a 100-year
You're
storm.
going to do it with me.
That was either a 5 or maybe a 1,000-year storm, which has nothing to do with years. It has everything to do with percents.
Number of.
So I don't know.
It's a 1% chance.
You have to be an
which is
engineer to
one-
understand
When
it.
I
Don't
was-
worry about it.
When I was in elementary school math, I was always getting in trouble not carrying the units. And I think this guy didn't carry the units because they somehow mixed inches with years. and then they're like, who cares? Units don't matter.
Just call it years.
That's how I see it.
I think a good way to look at it, too, is this is an indication of the risk associated with what might fall out of
That's
the sky.
even worse, right? That explanation muddies the water
Oh, that is spot on. That's
Is
money.
that-
with you.
Money right
We
there.
think like engineers.
Stamp and sign that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you, Corey. Entertain a motion to go into public hearing for item D.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
I move that we go into a public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Marshall, second by Councilman Euler. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing for item D. Anybody from the public for this one? Seeing none, I'd entertain a
Really?
motion.
Nobody?
Nobody for this. It's not as exciting.
All right.
I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Euler.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Beck. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're out of public hearing. Discussion back up here.
Do we have any reason to call Paul up?
Paul, would you like to speak
Came to
to
a
us?
meeting.
That's the best answer all night.
Don't ask him anymore. He'll go on the clock. We don't need that. Just leave him alone.
I guess the part that, and maybe Seth will wing this to him, but we've been in meetings as recently as last year when we're talking about construction standards and updating construction standards and what has to do with pipes and what has to do with storm drain and what has to do with it. Everything is an inhibitor for housing, right? And making it affordable.
Yeah.
So in general, what is standard changes that we're dealing with here?
What could they cost?
Yeah.
Well, I was not prepared for that. 100-year storm. Corey, and as you think about these standards, are we making things more difficult or more clear? I think that's probably the crux of the question,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
I would say with these, we aren't doing anything that is expanding or costing much more to a contractor to install. Most of these are clarifications that we're running to out on the site that our inspectors or our water department saying, no, we want to see it this way, and well, your standard doesn't show that. And so we're trying to provide some clarity. I can't think of any that are, say, a significant cost or big change.
Generally,
To say a project.
yeah. Generally speaking, and this is a generalization, but generally speaking, when we make these standards that are coming from in the field, working with developer experiences to where we're seeing a problem, like Corey said, trying to clarify that. So generally, I would say probably minimal decrease to some, maybe recognize.
Generally, probably minimal.
How was that?
Wow.
He said I could wing it, and I feel like I did.
100% did.
I feel like 100-year storm was probably just as good.
Well, I think that's what I was after was, hey, this is not just coming from a city saying, all right, change this up. It is because it comes usually through the field of this is going to be better and this is going to be more reliable and this is going to get stormwater away in a more effective way for us to monitor it and everything else, right?
Yes, and I think the other thing in all the clarity is as developers or engineers put together projects, that clarity will help them hone in faster rather than an afterthought in the field and now we're changing things or the feeling that we're adding things that we just weren't clear on. So
Yeah, a good example could be the all-weather roadway. Someone says, you should have it, and that person gets to describe what that means. Now it's described in code what it means.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think it's mostly it's clarity and not cost.
I would say Councilwoman Beck and I are old enough on this body to, she's not old, I'm
Right, you better
talking about
watch your
time
tongue.
served here. But the LID changes, I remember passing those originally and some of what that meant for low impact development and different types of landscaping to get water, through, to and through and everything. And this is changing it to, hey, it's not working as well as we thought. Let's get it underground, right?
yeah, such as roadside swales and the water is just going to infiltrate. Well, as we build those and run heavy equipment, the water can't get through. Things like that we're saying these underground chambers make that happen. It provides storage. We're not flooding areas. We've honed in on what works well and trying to make sure we've removed or discouraged what doesn't work well.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on item D? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the ordinance approving construction standards revisions 25.01.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Euler, second by Councilman Marshall. Roll call vote here. Councilman Cardon?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
And Councilman Took?
Yes.
D is approved. Takes us to new business section, A through H tonight. We've already taken care of B. First one, appointment of Kamie Hare to the Historic Preservation Commission. Councilman Euler, this is your section. Anything you want to say about Kamie?
Yeah, I'll just read her application, what she's got in here. This is a little bit about Kamie. I've lived in Spanish Fork for 21 years, graduated from Spanish Fork High in 2002, and married my high school sweetheart. I have 3 girls, 2 have graduated from Spanish Fork High School, 1 being the last year in the old school. I have some deep roots here in Spanish Fork. My grandpa was raised here. Graduated from Spanish Fork High in the 30s. My grandma was an elementary teacher at the Thurber School and Reese. My husband's family grew up in Lake Shore. I would love to help preserve any and all of the history we have here in Spanish Fork for future generations to see. So we're excited to appoint and have Kamie as a member on our Historic Preservation Commission.
I was all for it until she mentioned Lake Shore instead of Palmyra. I can't in good conscience. But I don't vote. This works out good. Okay, Kamie's great, and the Historic Preservation Commission that Councilman Euler is watching over for us is great too. It's been mentioned today already about getting those veteran banners up and everything, and your commission's doing a great job.
Yeah, well, we're talking about that real quick, Mayor, before we do the appointment. We're still in need of a few more volunteers for the 24th of July parade to help carry the veteran banners. We're short probably 6 or 7 more people, so if anybody watching is interested in volunteering and being a part of the parade, or if you've got some youth, some young teenagers that you think would be excited to help carry a veteran banner down our main street on the 24th, we'd love to have them help, so they could just reach out to me and we'll get that taken care of.
We'll dig them up some Spanish Fork swag, Jack, right? If they volunteer for us, if they are willing to take the heat, we'll get them a T-shirt, something cool.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Okay. Councilman Euler, I'll bet, is going to make a motion for Kamie.
I move to appoint Kamie Hare to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Motion made by Councilman Euler.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Marshall. A roll call vote here. Councilman Took.
Yes.
Councilman Cardon.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Thank you, Kamie, for being willing to serve. Item C, resolution on the proposed Stewart Farms annexation. Dave's getting his steps tonight.
I can use them. This annexation was on your agenda a couple of weeks ago. It's back in a modified form, now containing 62.25 acres. Subject property is located. Am I good? There. Highway 6 is on the bottom side of this image, right down there. The Quiet Valley development is southeast of the subject property. Maple Mountain High School, by way of maybe being a half mile away or so, is to the northwest of the subject property. Again, just over 60 acres over here. The proposal is to have the council approve a resolution to express intent to ultimately annex this property into Spanish Fork. Tonight, that's all we're asking, is that you consider that resolution. I'm really, really glad that Mr. Stewart, Mr. John Stewart, is here with us tonight. John, thank you. John, I think, proved that he is a great neighbor by way of agreeing a couple of weeks ago to hold off on this, to provide he and staff an opportunity to look at how to address what would have been a left out set of parcels in the area, which I don't think really made sense to anybody. And there aren't a lot of folks that I've worked with that would have been as agreeable to do that as John was. And not only did he do that, but he also did it in such a way that his neighbor could move forward with his annexation proposal. And subsequent to your meeting, John helped arrange a conversation with the remaining property owners that originally weren't part of the proposal. We had a good conversation with them, and I think worked through what might have been potential concerns that they had with coming into the city at this time. Again, I don't want to speak for them, but it seems like they're not overly concerned with being a part of the annexation. So John, again, thanks. I really do mean it. Thank you. So things have worked out well. This doesn't conclude the process, but still just kind of kicks it off in a fashion that's a little bit abbreviated over what happens when annexations get accepted by way of petition for further study. But I think that's it. Any questions?
So there's no island there now, right?
Yeah, this proposal, along with the annexation that is now in process to the north of this one, would bring, I think, all of the properties that previously in one manner or another had been between Spanish Fork City's boundary and Mapleton's into Spanish Fork.
And then just for clarity, there would be a public hearing once you go through the study process and we're ready to entertain that annexation, correct?
Yeah, so something just over 30 days from tonight, there would be a public hearing and
Perfect.
Yep.
But this is one where there isn't necessarily the study. I mean, we can study some things, but this is not the,
Just an intent to, yeah.
this is not the type where we would have a longer
For sure.
term study. And that's made possible, I think you might have said this, so I apologize if I'm restating, but that's made possible because within this acreage, we are serving water outside of our city limits, which allows us to use the resolution process, not the
Right.
Petition.
petition. Ugh, thank you. I thought I had it, but it
100 years petition. it's a long
that makes
thing.
sense. I'll let it go.
Questions for Dave about this? It was a good discussion a few weeks ago about this and getting it here to this point too. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks.
If there's no questions, I'd entertain a motion for item C.
I move to adopt the resolution to initiate the proposed Stewart Farms annexation based on the findings listed in the staff report.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Cardon, second by Councilman Marshall. Roll call vote here. Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilman Cardon.
Yes.
Councilman Took.
Yes.
Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart, as well.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Takes us to item D, the Brent money annexation petition acceptance.
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The subject property in this case is the very north end of Spanish Fork, 200 plus acres, identified here in yellow. I think this helps our current city boundary stand out a little bit. The properties that are adjacent to the proposed annexation area to the west, those were annexed into Spanish Fork about 2 years ago. And currently, about 2/3 of that is part of a really, really large industrial development. In fact, I got to say, they're going to start going vertical with walls there in the next few days. If you have time, go take a look today or tomorrow. Take a look tomorrow and then take a look next week. Once they start tilting walls for 200 and 400,000 square foot buildings, that landscape's going to change fast. Had to say it, sorry. But I think that does illustrate also, though, that one of the things that we've talked about as staff is that subject property in this case, I think, certainly is in the path of development. We think that Spanish Fork's ability to provide utility service to subject property is pretty good. The proposal is to have the annexation petition accepted for further study, so that would start that process that would give us an opportunity to shore up our knowledge about the property and what might be needed to, in a more precise way, provide service to it. With that, staff has recommended, DRC's recommended that this annexation petition be accepted for further study.
Questions for Dave about this one?
Dave, do we need to do anything with the growth policy at the same time as the annexation?
Yes, yep, at some point in time, Spanish Fork City's annexation policy, or annexation policy plan will need to be amended. We did that with the properties to the west of this one, again, that were just annexed within the last couple of years. I don't know exactly what that order looks like, if those end up on the same agenda, or if we bring that policy amendment to you for approval well in advance of having a public hearing for this annexation. Incidentally, we might also want to consider amending the growth boundary. There's kind of another layer of growth management that we have here, and maybe a general plan amendment also. So there might be a handful of things that I imagine likely would all be handled concurrently. So one agenda might have a few different items on it for consideration relative to this annexation proposal.
Okay. There were no concerns with Springville as far as adjusting the policy boundary?
As far as adjusting our policy boundary is
Because
concerned?
currently our policy boundary does not include this property, which I assume then means it Springville's does.
Springville's does, that's
And
correct.
so we're swapping the policy boundary basically with Springville. I'm just checking to see, does Springville, do we need to talk to them? Have we talked with them? Is there any concerns?
No concern from my part about the proposal and accepting it for
Do we
study.
do we base it off the property owner? How does that work? Legally, you set a policy boundary and
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question, and it is super helpful to have a city boundary of both Spanish Fork and Springville turned on visually if you could. For sake of this conversation, just assume, because it is, everything to the east of that yellow line is in Springville. And so this yellow rectangle that is shown as the money property is all that is unincorporated.
okay.
And so there is no, this is a true island or peninsula in Utah County. If you look at it, not just from our city's boundary, but from Utah County's larger vista, if you will.
So you're saying, Seth, sorry, just to be clear, you're saying everything east
Is
of-
already in Springville.
is already in Springville.
This is
Okay.
the only property until our western boundary that is not incorporated into Utah County. And so Springville has, we've had some very high-level conversations, I think both Mayor and with Mayor Packard and me with City Administrator Troy Fitzgerald. And Springville's annexation policy boundary does go, actually, it goes further west than our boundary does. It still goes to
Okay,
where
so
we've
they've not
annexed. They haven't
adjusted
adjusted it.
theirs
It goes further south than the highway. I think their boundary still touches the airport, if I recall, last time I looked
so.
at it. I don't think they've adjusted it there either.
Okay.
And so they haven't looked at it. They have expressed an interest that I think historically, and Mr. Money might even be able to speak to this better than us, but that they've viewed that this area would be in Springville and not Spanish Fork. I think it's fair to say as we go through this process that we'll have more conversations with them, and perhaps they will choose to go through the process that they have to oppose the annexation. But that's a process that's outlined by state law.
Okay.
And so I think you kind of hypothesize there, is it something that we leave to the landowner? That's actually, I think, maybe the best position I think staff has. That at this moment, based on city boundaries where they are and the proximity of utilities as they are, the landowner has said, hey, you're a lot closer to me today. Can I come into your city versus that one? Is that fair to say, Mr. Money? And so,
Okay.
those are the high-level conversations that we've had with Springville as well. They might oppose, and that's okay. There's a process for that.
Yeah, no, that helps a lot. 'Cause the reason I ask is because I know there are other areas within Spanish Fork that are within our growth policy, but it may make more sense that
Right.
they be in another city.
Yeah.
And so I just wondered what that process looks like.
And to your point, this is one of those areas that a year, 2 years ago, to the west of this boundary, Springville said, it doesn't make sense for us to serve here, so we are going to walk away. This sliver is one that they didn't include in that conversation for the reasons, whatever their reasons are. But just immediately to the west of this property is an area where they said, we think you can serve it better. If you want to, you go for it.
Yeah.
If there is disagreement, I would say at this point, it would be a gentleman's disagreement, and we would just go through the process and let it adjudicate
Process
however.
drive.
Yeah.
It's
go
not
wherever.
devil's pitchforks and Dawn's swords yet. Pretty mild.
Fair enough.
Good way of
I
putting
think
it.
that was actually well stated.
That was good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Applicants here, there will be a future date that you could speak to us as well, Brent, if you'd like, but you're here tonight. You're more than welcome to come up here and, yep. You bet. Take it back a slide. If you were from Lakeshore, Brent, we probably wouldn't allow you to speak here, but you're from Palmyra. Thank you. So you're welcome before.
The picture one, that one, yes. So, Mayor and City Council, thank you. I appreciate your time. I also appreciate your consideration of this annexation. I am Brent Money. I am the owner of the property. This property has been in the money name multi-generations. Okay. I am a full-time farmer and rancher. I do not do that on the side. This piece of property is a vital part of my operation. And a few years ago, when GWC purchased the property west of me, and then annexed that into Spanish Fork, like Dave said, I tried to get on that annexation. For some reason, Springville has decided that the boundary line would be on my west fence line, which I would, truthfully, I would not have had a problem with that if they would have kept the whole north side of the road. If Springville would have said, no, we're going to take the north side of the road, and that's where we're going to be. GWC did do an extensive study about the feasibility of bringing the utilities there that showed an enormous amount of cost. Dry Creek does run down along the east side of my property there. And as a property owner, as this development, as Dave has indicated, if you have not been down there recently, go down there. There's already buildings standing. Next month, there will be an asphalt road going on the west side of my boundary line. Okay, so it will be going right down that line to the middle where you can see the road coming across. Will be asphalted, and all utilities are right there. So in my mind, just as a property owner, as has been stated, this property is in Utah County. It is not in Springville. It might be in their extended plan, but the whole north side of the road was in their extended plan. And I believe that when Springville gave up the what's that flat? Stockman's Flat right, I believe they ended their right to the north side of the road. The east side has been in Springville for many years. So that boundary has been established. I would just stay in the county, but it's causing me anxiety. And things move very, very fast. 4 years ago, if you'd have told me that there was going to be 4 million square feet of stand-up buildings to the west of me, I would have said, you guys are nuts. And in a very short time. And I understand that things change. And as the property owner, I have to make sure that the value of that property is at the greatest that it can be. That's part of the legacy of owning property, is you try to increase the value of it. And although this annexation doesn't make or break Spanish Fork, and it doesn't make or break Springville, but to me, there's great value of which way I am annexed. And I don't believe I'm asking anything that anybody else that owned this piece of property would want to do. So I do appreciate your consideration. I do think there might be a little pushback, but hopefully that won't amount to much. I believe the property owner should have a pretty good say in that, and I also believe that a city should not have the right to devalue, and that's what Springville City hasn't even got a master plan for that area down there, and I believe it would devalue that a lot, and to ask a single 200 acres to try and get utilities to that couldn't happen. So Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Brent.
any
Appreciate
questions?
it. Any questions for Brent? No, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Mr. Money. Any other questions for staff on this annexation petition acceptance? If not, I'd entertain a motion for item D.
I move to accept the proposed Brent Money annexation petition for further study based on the findings in the staff report.
Motion made by Councilman Euler.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Took. A roll call vote here. Councilman Cardon?
Yes.
Councilman Took?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
And Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Perfect. Item D is approved. Takes us to E, the 1050 West annexation petition acceptance.
Again, thank you. As was the case with the last item on your agenda, this proposal involves accepting a proposed petition, annexation petition for further study. In this case, the subject properties are on the west side of I-15, on the north side of what for Spanish Fork is 400 North, just under 100 acres there. We had an opportunity in your work session to talk about this property and how it might fit into future development plans relative to potential future transit facility that could be in the area, front runner station, with a big improvement that we think will come along at some point in time, an interchange on I-15, things that we've been talking about for a number of years, things that we've been talking about with the representative of the annexation, Clyde Company, about for the past several years. So this isn't coming from left field, so to speak, in my opinion. I think we've anticipated having this annexation proposal at some point in time presented to the council, so you could either accept it and start the process for annexation in motion, or not accept the annexation for further study. At this point, that's really where we're at. It's just that point. We had an opportunity to discuss, I would say, a handful of perspectives and probably a handful of issues that we would want to work through should the council tonight accept this for further study. And with that, maybe the last thought that I'll share. This is a unique area. It's a unique area potentially to have Spanish Fork City residents, like actual Spanish Fork City neighborhood developed in. So I'd probably suggest that if the council does accept this for further study, we talk a little bit more sooner than later about, maybe how the annexation could be processed. Do we treat this like some other annexations that we've reviewed in the past? Probably still to date, one of the better examples for me, and it's been a while now, the Legacy Farms annexation, where we did quite a bit of homework through the annexation process to identify some required improvements that would be needed before the area could develop, some exactions that occurred at the time of annexation, which ultimately really led to the development of that area being able to move forward pretty quickly after the annexation had run its course and the council approved it. So I have a number of thoughts, but really the question for now is just whether the council wants us to move forward with this or not.
Dave, as on questions?
Sure.
Mayor,
Yep.
Jump on in.
Yep.
Who does that study work? Is that the applicant? Is that you guys, staff? Who does the work?
Yeah, it certainly could be a combination of both. There are, I think, under all circumstances, would be things that we as staff would analyze. It wouldn't be uncommon if there's a particular, for example, utility need for us to say, hey, you need to hire an engineer and figure out how to address X, Y, and Z. It could be that way with a number of different things, so it might be both.
One of the things I would want to know for sure, and I'm not sold yet, you all know my how much I love residents on the west side.
You have an I-15 issue. You
I
have an
an
I-15 block.
I do have an I-15 block. I appreciate that clarity. if this does get approved for further study, would a zone recommendation come from that study as well?
Yes. And big picture wise, there are a couple of options there. I think actually what the applicants have requested is just basically an agricultural zone at the time of annexation, which may be, what the council's most comfortable with. If we were to try to button down specific infrastructure needs and that type of a thing, maybe development types, which might be the case if the council really, really wanted to know what they were getting up front. The annexation step is a great time to do a really, really in-depth review of what you want, in the hope of being able to, have a meeting of the minds with applicants and to address a lot of details, and that might mean a different zone or different zones.
Sure. We talked a little bit about this when we looked at the zone to the south near the Benjamin interchange. Sort of that. It's a yes if this. It's a no for me if that. If that's so. I mean, in this case, we put industrial over there. I'd be okay there. Ag, I'm fine with that. If they want to come in the city as ag. Not going to be comfortable with residents pretty much at all, but we're not very consistent on how we apply that methodology at annexation. Right? Sometimes we say, let's do the study, assume it's ag. The study is a different study if it's going to be a zone agriculture is a zone residential. We're going to ask different questions. The expectations are different. The utility needs are significantly different. Access is different. Like it's a totally different study if you assume one zone over the other one. I'm not sure how to reconcile that in my head, right? We say go ahead and study this as ag. We're missing some answers to some questions if in turn they want to zone it something different. But I guess when we go to the legislative process of rezoning it, we get to ask those questions then as well, right?
I would think that it would be a little bit different in this area just because of the fact that it's by itself, right? It's the first time over there. I would think that it would need to be more in depth, whether it's ag or whether it's industrial, whether it's residential, whatever it is, because of the fact that it's going to set the tone for that side of the freeway, whatever it is. And so if we can't service that side of the freeway efficiently, we need to know that because we are setting the precedent saying Spanish Fork City is ready to start annexing properties on that side of the freeway. So I would think that we would need a pretty in-depth annexation study before we could make a decision, or I could make a decision on that.
Now, for clarity there, though, what they're asking to annex in borders our city boundaries already.
To the northeast is Spanish Fork City. But I think that it would, if there's an idea that there's going to be residential there, it's different than what's north of it pretty heavily, right? Because it's industrial above it.
But at the same time, there are residents that live out there.
Right.
Yep. There are residents that are serviced by our public safety that live out there because there's no one else that could get to them, right? This isn't the first time the city's faced something like this. I'm sure these questions and scenarios brought up with Highway 6. Everything that's developed north of Highway 6, Highway 6 is about as wide as maybe as I-15. And I'm sure the question came up as well, how do we access? There used to be an old, awful bridge that crossed the railroad. I'm sure there was questions about, can our public safety actually get to them? And at some point, it was allowed to happen, and it is what it is today. So, yeah, I agree. Those questions need to be asked. For me, it's not as much a concern as the residential as the concern of what type of residential. And are we ready for it?
And I think I'm with Kevin on that. I'm not super concerned about it being residential, but I would want to make sure that we could handle it. Like how many households, what's the density?
So, Dave, I'm
putting in and out of 4th North.
The question I guess I've got for you, this is kind of the second applicant that we've received in an area that the general plan possibly will be changing. And so I guess my question is, when are we actually going to be voting on and applying the new general plan?
Early fall is my expectation to have something before the council, which conceivably, and in all honesty, this could be a 3-month process with this annexation, or it could be, as was the case with Legacy Farms, over a year, and that would depend a little bit, I think, on everybody's expectation by way of what they want to see happen with annexation. But I think conceivably the timing lines up really well.
Okay.
Corey, is it fair to say in this area that utilities are, one, they are there on the northern border, right? They're there along 10th. But to bring the facilities to the south, some of them, power, water, PI, probably not sewer, but many of our utilities will need to be looped in order to fully utilize and fully connect to those services?
Yeah, certainly water and power. I don't know that I've looked deep into that.
Yeah.
But looping again, crossing across I-15.
That seems to be the largest, maybe the largest utility expense is, although the utilities are on that side of the freeway, they aren't on that side of the freeway in the looped manner. And so you're going to have to connect it here, and then as development, if you will, continues further south, there's going to need to be another connection. And those, I think, are expensive and maybe perhaps why this area hasn't yet developed. I think it's also fair to say that we do look at the annexation from the general plan perspective, not from the applied for zone. So if it's applied for as RR, as we do the study, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave or Corey, I think we are going to apply the general plan, and as the general plan exists, this area can be served or it can't be served, but until we do X, Y, or Z. We're not necessarily looking at it from that initial perspective, but from the general plan. So in that respect, for us, I think the general plan is super important, right? Sure. Because if the general plan in this area says ag, then we should look at it from the ag perspective. And then if we do change that and it's now 40 units to the acre, we may have a hard time resolving that. So I think that's a perspective that we will look at, that safeguards maybe that concern that you're talking about. One thing I do want to touch on that I don't think it's not germane today, but one thing I want to get out of you through this process, not if you choose tonight to say, yeah, let's study it. Part of the study I think I want to look at is how do we deal with this area west of the freeway holistically, because there is, at least you guys in previous meetings that we've had about this area, you've expressed concerns about movement. If we put a lot of houses out here, can they move north and south, or can they only get north and south by heading east onto Main Street, and then they can head north or south? So Jack, if you jump that other map up, we had a large, and this is not size-wise anywhere near this annexation petition tonight. Zoom out one click if you would, thanks. It's not anywhere near what this was, but say 2008 to 2010-ish, we studied what was the Legacy Farms area, which generally speaking is 4th North all the way to the railroad tracks, kind of on that diagonal, and that whole, what ends up looking like a pizza slice, right? From the railroad tracks to Reese Elementary, from 4th North to the railroad tracks. And as a part of that annexation, the city and the landowners, there were many, they at that time dedicated the right-of-way for what we now call Spanish Fork Parkway. And although Spanish Fork Parkway wasn't finished in its constructed state, right, until I think it was last year or a year and a half ago, the land was dedicated for that road at annexation, because as we did that annexation, the idea of movement from this point to that point only on 4th and or only on Highway 51 seemed problematic. And so the annexation didn't build the road, but it provided the path. If you'll jump back for me to the image of this one, this is not a large annexation, but it would probably be a good pattern for us west of the freeway to not do what we perhaps just did on the east side of town, where we did a lot of small annexations, almost parcel by parcel, because that makes it difficult for us to create some of these pathways for east, west, or north, south, whatever the direction is. And this might become a good template for how we're going to treat annexations west of the freeway. We're not going to do it on a parcel by parcel basis per se. We're going to look to more global, and we're going to want to see a route that somebody can travel east and west, if that's how you feel, so that we have a road that people can go on rather than coming into town, going north and south on our main street, and then going back east or west. I think I said east-west and I meant north-south a minute ago. I think all of that is really good stuff. And certainly if you want to study it, I would say let's make sure that's a part of the study. I would also add, on this one, David, might be good for us, if you choose to study it, that there be a couple of touch points. These are some of the things tonight. If you say, if we're going to study it, we want you to study, in addition to whatever it is you do, make sure you study these things. And we want to report on this before we do the public hearing, or after we do the public hearing, but before we consider the actual annexation itself. Right. So I think all of those are possibilities as you consider what you're looking at tonight.
Thank you, Seth. Appreciate that. Again, I'm going to go to any applicant that's here that would like to speak to this tonight. There's more public hearings that would come if this went down the road, but happy to hear from the applicant for a few minutes if they'd like to speak to this.
Yep. Awesome. My name is Clayton Rackham. I'm with the Clyde Capital Group, and like Dave said, we've been working on this since 2020. I've had the opportunity to meet the Nielsen's. Clark Nielsen is a distant cousin from these Nielsens, we think. A lot of ownership transfers over the decades, right? All of these individuals are also landowners in that area. We've also purchased land from those families, one of those families. And yeah, I guess one thing I'd like to touch on that hasn't been spoken about is that 4 years ago, I believe the city finished a big infrastructure project out there. And it was putting in a main sewer line on the west side of I-15, and that's what generated interest from our group initially. And then the station area plan and future general plan updates that have been in the works for years as well. And we'd love to study this alongside the city. To your question, Shane, I think we've already done a lot of that work, and we're eager to share it with the Public Works Department and get to the bottom of how we can loop water. And I believe it came up in DRC, your question, Seth, of is the Clyde Capital Group willing to make the investment for offsite infrastructure to begin development in this area? And the answer I had for him was yes. As change happens, I love that Spanish Fork's motto is pride and progress, and I think it goes hand in hand with Clyde Company's main mission statement of building better communities. You guys have great communities, and we'd love to continue that in your city, especially venturing west of I-15 where there's unique challenges. So that's what I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have for us.
For Clayton. Thank you, Clayton.
Thank
Appreciate you being in the work session as well. I guess my feelings when it comes to something like this, and again, I just feel impressed to say it, is the landowners carry some decent amount of weight with me. You're having them petition to study this for annexation. That's not tying our hands in any way that you're approving something on this side, but it is giving the gateway for considerable assets to probably be disposed and spent to study what to do over here. And so, again, I get to the Legacy Farms is called Legacy Farms because there were a bunch of farmers and landowners that petitioned back then to say, hey, we think we ought to look at coming into Spanish Fork and let's study this. And it was a long, long process of studying and making a great neighborhood of people over there that had no idea that that was studying there. But now that I know some of those people that live in that subdivision, it sure has only added to our community and added to the people that volunteer and make Spanish Fork a great place. So I tend to lean on property owners asking to study this. There's going to be a lot more discussion about what ends up here, what the cost is, how it affects the flow of the city, and the flow for whoever ends up being here. And so I get to be pretty comfortable listening to the property owners wanting to take the next step to do that.
Mayor, I agree with you, and I appreciate the comments from Kevin, Shane, and Seth. Helps me think things through a little more clearly. I liked Kevin's comments about Highway 6. At one point, we had to cross up there, and it wasn't a pretty crossing.
Yeah.
I remember with Councilman Mendenhall at the time, we were at a ribbon cutting for that bridge to go over into that side of Spanish Fork, and it felt like it was
a huge deal.
It was. You lived up there for a long time, so it takes time. But I'm willing to see what you guys have and are interested in doing, and if it aligns with what we're going to be doing with our general plan.
Good discussion. Any other points anybody wants to make for item E? If not, I'd entertain a motion for item E.
Shane, you want me to?
Go for it.
I don't.
Which of the two are you going to pick?
Yeah, maybe we should talk about it a little more before we actually do that. I don't know that I'm ready because of, one, the general plan isn't there yet. I don't want to. It's fine to study, but I would be willing to bet, Clayton, that if we were to bring you back up, you've already got in mind as the property owners of what you would like to see there, and it may be totally different from what our general plan is going to be.
From my involvement on the stakeholder group for the stationary plan with your third-party consultant, we've always aligned with that vision. In fact, the application having a rural residential, more of a holding zone, was intended to just not get in the way of what the city's currently doing, with the general plan being 10 years old and on the brink of resurfacing as a new plan. I think we've always wanted to align with what the city's needs were in that area, recognizing the unique things that may be coming soon, being front runner, a new interchange, and being on the north end of that where utilities naturally are pulled from. We feel like we can integrate that shift in density and reflect
kind of
what
help move towards where the more dense areas are going to be.
So that's our intent. We're happy to treat this feasibility study in that way, and I think if we're able to, if we have a plan that's solid enough today to start the studies on, I think we can move concurrently with the city's general plan update in the fall.
So if we just suppose that you were annexed, so this annexation study passed, and then the annexation came up, public hearing, and it was approved, and you were actually annexed, how quickly from that point do you feel like you guys would be ready to start moving forward with development?
So everything has to be, got a little close there, everything has to be studied and everything has to work. So the big utility lifts, they're big and expensive and hard to engineer, but I don't think that's the hard part. I think the hardest part is going to be the traffic flow and the traffic conditions in the area before other major improvements like an interchange and a front runner station come. And I think naturally we'll have to follow those restrictions. I think we want to start development as soon as it's possible, but we recognize that there's unique challenges specifically to traffic in the area.
So if we approve the annexation, then months down the road, we approved a general plan and then a station area plan, and now you're annexed, you would be fine. It may be different than what you want to develop today based on the station area plan. You'd be comfortable with that. Obviously you'd have to fall within, or you could still submit whatever it is you would like, but then it would be up to the council to determine whether to approve it based on.
Yeah, and we want to be in line with the idea, because I was also involved with UTA's stakeholder group, and I think we want to be we don't want to build something that's going to be irrelevant when those big pieces come in.
Yeah, and my thoughts is I don't want to approve an annexation and have you brought in only to have you have to sit there and wait because you're not ready to develop what that station area plan or the general plan, the density that we're looking for there.
Yeah, and I think we'll learn a lot as we go, and we'll phase things and get creative, and I think our group's good at that.
I think the other part of it is we've seen other annexations that have come before us that we've approved for a study that, maybe as the process went along, Dave's group has said, hey, this is what it's looking like, and the applicants pulled it back and said, yeah, we're not good. And so I think that's one of the benefits of the study is that they get to, team up together, say, hey, this is what we're seeing, this is what the engineering's showing, and then we can start making some decisions on different things like that. So I think there's some good to having the study going.
To that point, that's probably echoes my thoughts exactly on why we'd most appreciate the ability to study this alongside the city staff. Is there's a lot of things that over the next who knows how many months we're going to learn and understand better, and if we don't have that opportunity to study, I frankly don't know where we'll be.
Yeah, so just because we may approve the study portion of it tonight, we're not annexing it tonight. No.
Could one of our findings be, Dave, that we don't want to have them come back for approval until after our general plan is approved, so it gives the council the peace of mind that we know what we're doing, or does that really matter?
You can just
What matters is you telling us that's how you want it to play out, whether that's a finding or not.
I think that's
even if that's not legal, I think we're happy to respect. So,
what did you say? Honestly,
we're happy to.
That's legal.
We're happy to respect.
I think it's
decision.
an important point Clayton made there that the general plan involves all these property owners.
Yeah.
They've been a big part of the general plan.
So you're gonna know what's going on.
Yeah, they probably know just
you
as
might
well
know
as
more
us.
than us.
Yeah, of what that's planned for out there, because they've been giving input. I know it feels like 5 years. It's only been a couple. It's been 2.
Not quite.
Yeah.
3,
Getting there.
2.
Yeah, but they've been involved in that too.
Dave?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
I don't know how to word this. Annexation study. How quickly could it go from a study to being brought back up for an actual annexation?
120 months.
Pardon me?
120 months. Somewhere
Days?
in there.
120 days?
10 years. No, I'm joking.
Because obviously it varies, right? We've had some that have been quicker than others. If everything were to fall in line, you guys met, you got stuff looked at, how quickly possibly could it come back up before the council to vote on?
So there's like a technical answer to that, which I don't think is realistic in this case. So trying to be realistic, I see this October, November.
In the fall,
I
anyways.
think conceivably before the end of the year. I think that's realistic. However, and just to add to a couple of big picture thoughts, generally speaking, we don't, when people want to annex into the city, assume that they want to continue using property long-term after annexation like they were in the county. Otherwise, stay in the county. So we would, and all this has been said already, but we're going to want to do a deep dive on this.
Yeah.
And talk about things in detail. We have learned from things like the Legacy Farms annexation
We've learned from things that worked out pretty well, but that didn't go perfectly, that there are things that we need to do differently. And for the most part, those do involve being more deliberate and more methodical and taking more time, or at least the time is the result of wanting to be more thorough. So it's going to take months. And yet, like we talked about earlier tonight, land use change typically does take a long time. So, sorry for the squirrely answer, but
yeah, no, I wasn't expecting an exact 120 days because
not days, months. No,
oh, months.
I think Legacy Farms is a good case study, right? Kevin, your point about US 6 being similar to I-15 it's true. I think there's some differences, and I think we all should recall that one of the biggest problems we had with Legacy Farms was the crossing of the railroad track that we talked about almost every week for 2 years. When is it going to be open? When is it going to be open? When is it going to be open? Why? Because we wanted more access up there. My number one problem with people on the west side, with a larger community on the west side, not people on the west side, I should definitely clarify that, with a much larger community on the west side, like we're talking about, is access, right? And right now, I'm not supportive of annexation, and I don't think that's going to surprise you after hearing my comments for the last couple hours. However, Mike, you made a good point in that I think that sort of erring on the side of the landowner is beneficial to this body. And because of that, I would say let's move this into study without any guarantees whatsoever. You're willing to spend the money, they're willing to do the work. So let's roll up our sleeves and do the work and see where we get to. I'm absolutely going to ask questions about how do you get cars, bikes, peds into that neighborhood? How do you get them? How do you connect them to the rest of the community so that's not an isolated piece of Spanish Fork on the west side? You are the first, right? When we're talking the first in real numbers in a large volume of people. So it's harder. It's going to be harder for you all. Just plain and simple. We're going to ask harder questions. If this was 5 years away and you guys were in place, we'd be like, hey, just, partner with them. So be prepared for that. Staff, be prepared for that. With that, Mayor, I'll make a motion if you want.
I would entertain such. I think just one touch on the traffic piece of it that I think you've touched on well, Shane, is that in the similar area, just driving out to where I did, out to Neil and Susan Sorensen's, which is western Palmyra, almost West Mountain on the bend. This is the route I took to get out there. To the north and east here, where it is annexed Spanish Fork, looks different and is changing almost every day already. Sure. There are people and there's traffic out there because companies are employing hundreds of people out there. So there's traffic flowing out there like I never saw at all when I was a kid, and even today, that traffic. And so I like that. I like the emphasis on studying it with no guarantees whatsoever and putting that there, because the flow of not just employees going to and from work, but the flow of people and kids. Let's talk about how that works to connect to these streets that are already, some of them you can see from a map, kind of half built going into this area.
Yep.
And I'm sure people thinking, well, those get connected and maybe flow. Okay, how does it flow safely to get them to and from Spanish Fork? Yeah. Because this is where I rode my bike underneath there to get up to Bob's and everywhere else with my friends, and it was Bob's. That's what it was now.
Yeah, I shopped a lot of penny candy at Bob's.
And go to Kevin's neighborhood.
Penny candy anywhere
neighborhood
anymore.
Right there. So it's different now, and how does that work? But I don't think we get those answers unless we study it.
That's sort of where I've gotten to. I'm again not thrilled that we're to this point, but we're to this point, and to be fair to the applicant, be fair to the landowners.
Yeah.
They want to do it, give them a shot to do it, convince us that it makes sense.
Yeah,
And
to
go
your
from there.
to your point about access as well, I mentioned I had my animal shelter meeting this morning, and driving home, usually when I come home, I'll come down 3rd West, so I'll turn at the airport and then I'll hit 3rd West and just go straight shot underneath I-15. I couldn't do that today because the railroad track, there was a train that had stopped on the railroad track, and so I had to turn right, cut through Palmyra, and then cut north through Lakeshore, Benjamin area before I finally could get home.
Came up in
And
Payson.
didn't get to Payson. Didn't make it to Payson. But yeah, those are things to consider as well, with there being multiple railroads out there that, you know, what's the access like?
Which, and again, the western border of this parcel map that we're discussing, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the road torn up for our sewer line that went in that road and went over the railroad. And when you're putting sewer lines and roads out there, that was a tough haul for everybody that lives out there, including these landowners.
Yep.
And then to say, you know, well, let's not study it. That just seems like we should study.
I mean, I walked in here like, no way in the world would I say yes to a study, and now I'm like, all right, let's be realistic. There are some unanswered questions. I'm leaning heavily on the landowners want this to happen, and I think that's really important for us to take into account. So that's where I'm at today. But I'd make a motion if you're there, Mayor.
Yep, ready.
I move to accept the 1050 West Annexation Petition for further study with emphasis on access with cars, bikes, peds. This one might be controversial, so you have to bear with me a little bit, but I'd like the baseline to be the new general plan, not the old general plan.
I second that.
Agreed.
Second?
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion? We got a motion and a second? Okay. So roll call votes. Let's start on that end. Councilman Took?
Yes.
Councilman Cardon?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
And Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Thank you. Good
One
discussion.
thing I love about working with Councilman Marshall is that you can be set in your ways.
Especially when it's engineering
Listen
stuff.
to staff; they're all
They all
over here.
laughed. Every single one of them laughed.
No, but one thing I like about working with you is that you're open-minded. You're not so stuck in your ways that you have blinders on and you're not willing to look at things. Because over the years, I've noticed that you come in hard, like I'm a yes or I'm a no, and not that you can be easily swayed, but you don't have blinders on that you can't see the other side, and that's cool.
That is cool.
That's cool.
You're so cool, Shane.
Cut that. Send it to Carrie, Shane's
cool.
wife,
I'm
Mrs.
cool.
Marshall. Yeah. Thank you. Good discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
What did I do?
Takes us to item F.
Much pressure.
The UDOT direct. Thank you, applicant, for
Yep, thanks for
being here
coming.
as
Appreciate
well.
it.
Appreciate your insight. 1050, UDOT direct award grant HB 502, US 89, US 6 bridge up by Fingerhut.
That's an exciting one.
Yeah, that's a big one.
We've talked about this for a little while, but as part of House Bill 502, there was $13 million allocated. I think, Jack, if you have a map to, there we go, to help facilitate a bridge over the railroad for pedestrian access, a trail, as well as vehicles, and making this a four-way intersection. This is the agreement to administer that through UDOT. So it's a one-time allocation of money. It'll come in quarterly. The first one is scheduled to come August 1st, and quarterly we'll get $3.25 million to Spanish Fork. Spanish Fork will take the responsibility of designing and building that bridge to facilitate the trail and traffic there. So this will be great from the trail side. It'll be great to find the money and the ability to connect Dripping Rock and our trail there. Right now we're contemplating or planning it coming through the development, and then it would come along Highway 6 underneath and connect into Mapleton and help facilitate a larger trail system that I think will benefit everyone, as well as some benefits there at the intersection with Highway 89. So
Corey, when do you think this project will actually get started?
as soon as the funds are there, we'll start designing full force. There's been some initial design work done to get the funds. We'll move those forward. It's going to take a while to design that, get the approvals with the railroad and UDOT. I expect we're going to be designing and getting approvals for a year plus. And then as quick as we can move forward with construction, we will.
Can I ask a question, just because I'm not super clear? Are those actually two bridges or just the one?
One's
Does
existing.
it point on both? This is the existing bridge
Okay.
of Highway 6. They've drawn what this ultimately will look like with the intersection, but this would be the new bridge that currently is not there.
And it will be pedestrian.
The other
and
bridge is
vehicle.
drawn in, but that's the existing bridge. Yeah, the trail will be along there as a full-width trail.
Okay.
There will be pedestrian crossings, but really the safe route that we're going to direct and try to get people is to parallel, and then there's an underpass
You think there's
further
gonna be a-
south on Highway 6.
You think there'll be a ped crossing at that highway intersection?
That'll be part of UDOT with the signal there, yeah. And as it's drawn here, that is
I
shown.
wouldn't think they'd let us do that.
I would prefer you didn't. I thought we were going back under and parallel.
We are. The main trail will be across and then under this underpass.
Oh, okay. All right. To connect
However,
with the rest of the trail system.
This is drawn in the discussion, has been striping in a pedestrian crossing with a PED button.
Yeah, I think.
I don't,
I think we
that's-
discourage. From my perspective, I don't want that.
yeah.
Like if we, I don't want pedestrians going across.
I don't have it more zoomed in, but
Yeah,
it does show a painted pedestrian. That's what's been,
and this is very early
Very
concept.
yes.
But I think part of our study should be: do we want to encourage and/or allow peds there?
I absolutely would
It's a
support
mile and a
not.
half detour or whatever. Maybe it's 4 mile detour, but
We have.
this is a difficult ped crossing, right? Because I'm coming down the canyon.
Yeah, it's the first stop.
At this moment, it might not be the first stop. I think there might be a light eventually on one of those further east ones.
But today, that's certainly.
But today, it's the first stop. It
And,
would-
and honestly, even when the homes are developed, there's not immediate attractions across the street that someone
walk
would want to
across.
walk to.
Right.
They're there for recreational
Where's the trail on the north
exercise.
side?
otherwise. I'm sorry, what?
Where's the trail on the north side that connects to the rest of the community? Yeah, on the Mapleton side.
I don't know that it's built yet, and I'm not super familiar.
But it's
It'll
going to come in
across.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me,
Ultimately,
that's-
you hear the Bonneville Shoreline Trail.
Yeah.
This would be a major connection
Yeah,
to.
to me, that's what the purpose of this bridge is.
Absolutely.
Not
Is-
foot traffic.
No, is to connect that trail. And if you have to go a mile out of your way, you're not going out of your way. That's what you're doing.
purpose of
It's
it.
the purpose of
It's
it.
the trail.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's
would
worth
not want to
noting
see-
too, we were awarded through MAG $3 million as part of the trail system as well. And
Or go under.
certainly a big push of getting the project done is the bridge, and this helpful.
Thank you, Corey.
Yeah, thank you.
A lot of work went into that, so good work.
So Corey, I'm assuming that UDOT, with this agreement, UDOT's just giving us the money and they're saying, this is all you get, don't come back, ask for more.
It's
You're
pretty
on the
clear,
hook.
you
We
are
are on the hook.
obligated to build the bridge, no matter what it costs, and here's your allocation. Now, that's the funds that were applied and conceptual cost estimates, that's what it'll cost, but that's the money we'll have to work with, but this contract does obligate us to
build.
finish the project.
And we go find the contractor to do that?
Yep. We design it, we find the contractor,
Which is
we
good.
pay
We
the
can typically
bills.
do it better. Not better. Sorry, that's incorrect.
Faster.
We can typically do it less expensively. Our processes build it. It's just different. The state process, federal processes, and city processes are a little bit different. So
But to Shane's point, I mean, if we have $3 million in trail money, $13 million in bridge trail money, if it's a $17 million project ultimately, Spanish Fork City will need to find those funds somehow. I think it's made it clear here from UDOT,
They're done.
we are not paying overages through this contract, you're going to be on the hook to finish the project and find the funding.
So we'll be very mindful of that, and as we design it, we'll design with cost in mind, and when we get estimates, if it's too much, we'll value engineer, and we're not looking to add more to it. This is a tremendous opportunity that we have to connect the trail structure. We have literally hit a wall at the railroad tracks with any plans and designs that we've had to connect our trail system to that Bonneville trail system. And this is a wonderful statewide coup, right? To be able to connect these trail systems and to be able to fly now over the railroad track at a bridge like this. What a gift. And this is a wonderful win for certainly South Utah Valley, but I think even all of Utah, because that Bonneville Shoreline Trail is a really cool thing. And now it will cross Highway 6.
You think about the miles of trail along the river, and it's a great stretch that the city's built, but expand that for those that really want to go further. This is huge.
Well, you talk about the east side of Highway 6 of our city that we've talked about a little bit tonight, and they get over to that Mapleton Trail and they say, my gosh, this is awesome. And then they have expressed to everybody, I think, how do we get it connected to our trail system? Because it's not, unless you really have to take a road or you have to drive over to the Mapleton Trail, and now you'll be able to stay on the trail and go through that. That Mapleton Trail is beautiful. It goes through their city.
Yeah.
So it's a big connection for
It is.
our residents too.
What a win.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions, discussion, comments about this?
Just to make sure I don't get conflicted, Corey, have you hired a design firm for this? You can say yes over there.
I think it's
You have not.
You see Consor on there. The sponsor of the application, who was involved in the development here, hired them to help get the funding. We will go through a selection process and put that out for an RFP and select who we feel the best engineer is for the project.
You want to abstain, being safe?
My firm's not going to propose. I'll just be on the record. We won't propose.
Okay. But entertain a motion on item F.
I move to approve the UDOT Direct Award Grant HB 502, US 89 with US 6 Bridge.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck, second by Councilman Cardin. A roll call vote here. Councilman Cardin?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
And Councilman Took?
Yes.
F is approved. G, Utah Division of Finance Verk Loan Extension. Mr. Jordan Hales.
This document extends a one-year loan that the city received from the Utah Inland Port Authority. We had that loan extended, or the loan was issued in the spring of last year. We anticipated that the Verk PID would be able to bond sometime during the winter, and that wasn't able to happen due to some legal stuff that the port was going through. That the Verk PID should be able to bond in the next couple of weeks and have those funds closed on, and then the city will be able to be reimbursed and thus reimburse the Utah Inland Port. But this just extends that loan from the 1 year a few more months to get us to this point. Any questions on this?
I think it's important to add the repayment of this loan will come from the proceeds, as he mentioned, from the bond, but what pays for the bond is the differential that comes from the Verk project, not from the residents. This isn't coming from tax dollars, but not from general fund Spanish Fork tax dollars, but from Verk generated differential.
Perfect. Great point.
Yep.
Thank you, Jordan. Any questions for Jordan on this? I'd entertain a motion for G.
I move to approve the Utah Division of Finance Verk loan extension.
Motion made by Councilman Cardin, second by Councilman Took. Roll call vote here. Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Councilman Took.
Yes.
Councilman Cardin.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
G is approved. H, hearing and resolution for 2000 East Highway 6 connector. Mr. Vaughn Piquel.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I want to kind of give you an overview of the project, the 2000 East US 6 connector. And then after that, we'll go through the scope of the acquisition, the history of the negotiations, the appraisals, and then kind of conclude with where we stand now. So, see if I can use this. This map is from the MAG 2023 Regional Transportation Plan. And you can see on this long arterial, all the way from the southern end of Salem City, Woodland Hills area, north along Woodland Hills Drive. Then it deviates and heads on through unincorporated county and comes up 2300 East in Spanish Fork, crosses Canyon Road. We have a new roundabout just north of Canyon Road over by the neighborhood Walmart. And then this project would continue north and jog over and connect at Highway 6 about 2000 East. So that's the overall kind of big picture of this project. But for our sake, we're only looking at this very north end where it connects to Highway 6. You can see on this map that there are two existing intersections, one at Spanish Fork Parkway and Highway 6, then another at Center Street. And this would be roughly equidistant between the two existing intersections. And to zoom in a little further, I can highlight, this is Mr. Jex's property here, much of this, and then also southwest of this. And I'll show you how that applies to what we need to acquire for the project. The areas shown in green are the right-of-way portions of the acquisition. Most of that is from Mr. Jex. There's some other property owners as well, to a little bit to the west here, and then a very small sliver to the east on the south side. But the bulk of what you see, this is this polygon number 16, this one number 17, number 12 here on the southwest. Also this red, the storm drain easement on the very west of the property. And then because of the odd shapes that will be left over, we're also proposing to purchase these odd polygons as well. And that would leave him with this kind of rough triangle shape for commercial development. And then this property down over here is largely untouched other than just the roadway portions. That's zoned for residential. So the next, this is kind of a timeline of where we've been. The city got its appraisal back in October of last year. I understand our surveyor was meeting with Mr. Jax off and on over the next few months. We made a formal written offer on May 13th of this year. And then we got a request for mediation from the property owner with the Office of the Property Rights Ombudsman that same day. Had some phone calls with their counsel, and then I issued a revised notice of this meeting on May 29th. We also corrected some things in that notice and extended the deadline for the offer, acceptance of the offer to June 13th. I got a letter from their counsel on the 1st. He pointed out a problem with the appraisal. Actually, is a problem with the methodology, and they applied severance damages incorrectly. And then just actually yesterday afternoon, we got their appraisal, the property owner's appraisal that they ordered through the Office of the Property Rights Ombudsman. So I've been spending time yesterday and today looking through that. I'll give you some numbers from that appraisal. I also, based on that improper methodology, recalculated what the offer should be. There's also a very small typo in some area. And so issued a new offer amount. It's roughly $200,000 more. I'm glad that they caught that in our appraisal. Not glad that we need to pay more money, but I want to pay what's fair and what we should be paying. And then tonight is the council meeting. This is a unique meeting. It's not like most anything else you do. It's not a public hearing. It's It's an opportunity for the property owner and their counsel to address you about the acquisition. And that's really all the guidance that the statute gives you. So I'm trying to give you information about the history, the negotiations, the two appraisals that are out there, and where the numbers are. So with that, with the new appraisal, this is kind of where we are. The offer that I revised today is based on the city's appraisal, but taking into account the errors that we found. So nearly $3 million for all those properties. Parcel 12, which is the residential parcel, the storm drain easement, and then those 4 parcels, the 16 and 17 are the right-of-way parcels themselves, and then the 16S and 17S are those remainder parcels. But altogether, they're still valued at the same rate. It's $425,000 an acre. So we are offering $2.985 million for that. Their appraisal came in. It's just actually pretty close. It's within 10%, a little bit higher on the residential property, and a few thousand on the easement, and then it's within about 200,000 for the commercial property. So that's where we stand today. If you have any questions for me, I can hopefully answer them. If not, there's the opportunity for the property owner and his counsel to address you.
I have a question. Will you remind me, I know Spanish Fork City would pay for this. Do we get reimbursed from?
It's my understanding, Corey, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's part of the funding from MAG.
Okay, that's what I would think.
For the whole
Part,
project.
like, so Spanish Fork City pays?
This is a MAG-funded project.
Okay, the whole thing?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a match portion. Jordan always loves we spend the money and then get reimbursed, so there's a timing that you'll see budgeted in our budget for it, and then we'll also budget for income. Sometimes those offset fiscal years, and
yeah,
but ultimately it's reimbursed.
Okay.
Yes.
Corey, does that include the roundabout?
Yes.
Including the roundabout?
Yes, and what you see, I'll say going east from the roundabout, the intent today is not to build that full width. However, to facilitate traffic coming through, and as the need expands or development happens, the road would be widened further. But the desire today is to connect and give other options for traffic to get to Highway 6 versus just Spanish Fork Parkway or going over to 1100 East and Center Street. This is a really congested spot that we're really interested in moving vehicles and helping them get to Highway 6 and I-15 and Canyon Creek.
Would the connection on Highway 6 be similar to what it is on Powerhouse, where it's got the T, what do you call that?
Signal T?
High T.
No.
T? High T?
Today this is contemplated a full intersection.
Okay.
Just with the 3 legs with signal.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Questions for Vaughn or staff?
Not right now.
Applicants here, more than welcome to come up and speak if you'd like.
Give them the term.
It's a hearing, not a public hearing, but a hearing for you.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Can you give your name to Tara so she gets it in the minutes?
My name is Matthew Anderson. I'm an attorney at Fabian Van Cott. I'm here on behalf of Brian Jex, the property owner.
Thank you, Matthew.
I appreciate your valuable time and your meaningful public service. I'm going to try to be short and direct and non-adversarial. Obviously, this is not a happy time for the property owner to have this, kind of take this property taken from them. And you probably all are familiar with the rich history of legal disputes about property takings. I'm not going to bore you with that. We do think that this is probably something that we're not going to be fighting on a legal basis, but we are concerned about the offer and the just compensation that's required by the statute and constitutional law. That being said, the city has been good to work with so far, and we appreciate the attorney's efforts and the open lines of communication. We're grateful that the city was willing to look at, correct, and increase their offer, that's a good step, and I think that makes us optimistic about how we could proceed. Our appraisal, has been mentioned, was just submitted to the city yesterday, and so it doesn't seem right that we would be ready at this time to negotiate or work on, kind of get out our pencils and work out a resolution. But certainly that's what we hope to do. We think our appraisal is better, and we think it should be relied on, and so we are hopeful that the city will take a look at our appraisal and increase their offer again. But we are optimistic. We're cautiously optimistic that we can be able to negotiate in good faith, and that we'll be able to come to an arrangement, an agreement that would avoid, litigation and maybe even the additional process of the ombudsman's mediation, which is the track we're on right now. But I think we're interested in trying to explore a direct communication with the city and try to work something out, and maybe we can avoid those additional processes. But certainly we're confident in our appraisal, and we're confident in the mediation process. I've gone through that with the Ombudsman's office a number of times, and it's always been, I think, a good, productive way to approach these kinds of issues. But we are looking forward to negotiating in good faith and being able to have a little bit of time. I think both parties need it at this point to go through the offer and the proposal, and maybe tweak a few things and modify a few things that would make sense to both parties. But that's really all I had to say today. I appreciate your time, and I'm willing to pretend like I know the answer to the question you might have. This is, as you might know, these kinds of disputes are heavily dependent on an appraisal, and battle of the experts is sometimes what they're called, and that's something that I'm not going to be able to get into with any degree of accuracy or helpfulness. But if there are any questions, I'm open to them.
Thank you, Matthew. Questions for Matthew?
I don't have any. I think I appreciate your statement. I appreciate Mr. Jex being here tonight. I think that's part of this, is to get this on the record, continue the process, show our commitment to moving forward with the project, hear your side of your commitment to working with us to move forward with the project. So I don't have any questions. I just say thanks for coming. I appreciate it. And as we contemplate how to move forward, just want to talk about options on what we do tonight.
Sure.
So, and if the rest have comments.
My question is, what are our options tonight?
You have wide options. I neglected to say that Mr. Anderson's been really good to work with as well, and I expect to continue to negotiate and even mediation. We're just continuing with the process, bringing this public or this hearing forward just to move forward the process. But I expect to, and I hope to, resolve with just negotiation, right? And maybe even avoiding the mediation altogether. But so you can just say thank you and close the hearing and not pass the resolution that's in the agenda packet for you. You could close the hearing and pass the resolution if you wanted to. Do either.
If under option A, we close the hearing and say thank you, and negotiations fall through, does this happen again, or do we pull up the resolution in some future meeting and pass the resolution?
I think technically you've met the statute by having this opportunity for the owner to comment and address you. You could just adopt the resolution at the time that negotiations fall through.
Okay.
So I would think it would give them a courtesy notice that that's happening.
Sure, absolutely. Yep.
But maybe to be clear, you wouldn't be able to go forward until you adopted the resolution at that future date, like you just said. Okay.
Sure.
Statute requires, if not a resolution, it requires like permission to move forward. But I like to do it in a resolution because it's clear.
And is this resolution have numbers in it? I'm not seeing the numbers in the resolution.
No, it doesn't have the numbers. It just authorizes the acquisition of the property through eminent domain. So you could just file the complaint and move forward with the litigation at that point.
The thought being, we'll continue to negotiate, the negotiations break down, then you just take action to go through condemnation.
Yep.
Or eminent domain, okay.
I guess some of the downside is if you adopt the resolution and then we end up resolving it just through negotiation, then it feels like you went through eminent domain with.
Correct.
Maybe take a public hit when you didn't need to.
So it sounds like we just say thanks for coming and good night.
Okay. I know. I'll take that second hit and I'll leave. Thank you.
That is
Appreciate
option A for sure.
That's where I lean.
I think that's the better option.
Yeah, I don't know that there was ever the intention of threatening anything tonight at all, and there certainly was not an intention of negotiating anything tonight either. I think it's important that we be super transparent, follow the process, and make sure all those boxes are checked, and let the applicant as well, the landowner, know that this is extremely important to the city. And Mr. Jex, you've been here a very long time, and you know how we've grown up as a city, and so I am with you, Stacy and Jesse, in picking option A. We've had the hearing, we closed the hearing, we give the landowner and Vaughn an opportunity to negotiate.
Then we go from there.
We go from there.
Yeah.
We're darn close. Darn close.
You want to what? Do you want to come up, Mr. Jax?
Most of you know me. I've been a Spanish Fork for a long time. Loved growing up here. Lived here, worked here, owned a business here, and negotiated my way through other hearings such as this. Most of the time we ended up just giving the property to the city. But this is a little more than kind of a gift than we can look at and do. Years ago, when Spanish Fork came to us and asked us to annex this property into the city, it was because they were directed by something legal that wasn't being addressed at the time. So cherry stem annexation, they called it, so that the city had access to the golf course. When they found out they couldn't do that cherry stem, they came to the property owners and said, if you'll annex this into the city for us so that we're not, so that we're in line with what we need to for the state to come in here and put the road in and stuff like that, then we'll just look at your property and we'll put it in and we'll zone it the way that we would any other piece of property, but we won't touch it until you're ready to sell it, or we won't develop it until you're ready to do it. Well, lo and behold, I've been told that you're going to take it. Was not totally pleased with it, and I'm even less pleased that we put a roundabout in there instead of another means of directing traffic. But I've gotten over that, and so now we're all friends again. And so I would like to say that, you know, we will be kind in all that we can, but we will want to get a just compensation for what we're doing there. And I won't be a stickler for stuff, but we would like, you know, access into the property and out of the property should we develop that at some point, or somebody else develops it. Not me, my kids probably, if they are so inclined. I'm pretty old and I don't have it in me to argue with people too much anymore. So I'm grateful for Matt to take the brunt of the abuse and listen to me squirm and squalor and then come back and say, well, you know, this is what we need to do. And so I appreciate that, and I appreciate your taking the time to listen to me, and I hope that, you know, that when all is said and done, that, you know, if you see me on the street, you can still say, oh, yeah, he wasn't that hard to deal with. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. You got good kids, Mr. Jeck. Saw a couple of them today.
And my dad's not happy about that either, so he's going to have to use it all the time.
Yeah.
He's like, roundabout?
Yeah.
Just look left.
That's
Dude,
right. He's
just
up
look
in
left.
that area.
You'll be
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Appreciate that
Like
discussion.
I said,
Yeah.
thank you and good night. Right?
I think we have to
Is that where we landed?
move, right?
Is there a formal, Yeah, is there a formal close the hearing? Like, this isn't a public hearing, so I don't know what that is.
Move that we listened to the property owner and enjoyed the conversation.
Well, yeah, I think basically the summation of what's here is to move into the next phase of negotiations with our legal counsel and Mr. Jex's legal counsel to get to a point that's fair and just. And we appreciate you working with us and super. I think it goes without saying there's touches of the Jex family all over this community. This is another touch that's super important for not just our city, but the regional connection of cities in South Utah County. And so it's a pretty big deal to get that connection to Highway 6 there.
Super weird when you can see a map. You're talking about a property or an area where you can see where you grew up.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Houses on it. It's weird.
Yep. So that's me getting to kind of make a motion that's kind of a half motion.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, nothing formal, so I think we're good.
Okay. Thank you.
Move that we adjourn.
Are we closed session tonight? No closed session items? Okay. Motion on the table to adjourn council meeting. Can I get a second? Second from Councilman Took. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Appreciate it.